Chapter 1003. Chen Zhizhong was very courageous, but the scene in front of him was beyond his imagination. The moment he steadied himself, he instantly retreated dozens of meters. Only then did he hide behind another boulder that was a few meters tall. He took a few deep breaths. Headless humans. Armless humans. Legless humans. Humans with a hole of more than 10 centimeters in diameter on their chests. Chen Zhizhong would never show such a fearful expression if these humans were just corpses. But he was horrified to find that these people were definitely not dead, but all alive. That's right. All of them were alive. It was hard for him to imagine how someone could survive without a head. It was hard for him to imagine how these monster-like humans, who looked so miserable, still had signs of life. Interesting, really interesting. There are actually living creatures here. How many years has it been? 1,000 years? Or 10,000 years? I finally see living people from the outside. Among the hundreds of mutilated humans, a man who had lost his arms and had a bloody wound on his chest raised his head mechanically, his eyes looking at the direction where Chen Zhizhong was hiding. It's really interesting that a living person came here. Is he also a heretic who was exiled here? But why didn't he receive the punishment of flaying? Did he bribe the criminal officer? Or does he have some background? Who cares about his background and origin? The fact that he can come here unscathed proves that he's not a friend, but an enemy. Kill him when you're dealing with an enemy. Let's play with him first and test his strength. It's not too late to kill him after we've trampled him. Who's first? I'll do it. Me. Chen Zhizhong was dumbfounded as he looked at these people. No, they should be monsters. If he was given another chance, he would never want to come here and be targeted by this group of monsters. Who the hell are you people? Since he was discovered, Chen Zhizhong no longer hid his figure. He flashed out from behind the boulder and shouted in a deep voice. The legless man was a middle-aged man about 40 years old. He had a beard and looked extremely fierce. He floated out like a ghost and stopped a dozen meters away from Chen Zhizhong, laughing wildly. You don't know? You don't know who we are? When did the sacred pristine palace become so interesting? How could they imprison such a silly kid? Chen Zhizhong frowned and said, What sacred pristine palace? I don't understand what you're talking about. Also, I wasn't locked in here by anyone. I followed my master here. Your master? The legless man blinked and suddenly burst into laughter. Did you hear that? He is not a heretic who was banished here, but followed his master into this prison. Absurd, this is too absurd. There are actually people in this world who are willing to come here? Did I hear it wrong? Or are you talking nonsense? Chen Zhizhong took a few steps back and vigilantly asked, Who are you people? The complexion of the legless man changed, and his fierce aura instantly skyrocketed, pressing down on Chen Zhizhong like a storm. However, when that enormous aura gushed out 4 to 5 meters away, it was blocked by a transparent energy shield. At the same time, 2 pitch-black chains appeared out of thin air, binding the legless man's neck and waist. Damn it! The legless man looked angry and roared a few times before he dejectedly retracted his aura. But his eyes were still fixed on Chen Zhizhong as he said in a deep voice, We're the Diablo Precantator clan, the most powerful warriors of our clan. Damn traitors from the sacred pristine palace. My people helped you expand your territory, fought and killed for you. But after you informed the entire cultivation world, you betrayed us, killed our king, slaughtered our people, and imprisoned all of us loyal disciples who have sacrificed so much for you in this prison. Damn you, you bastard. Damn you, all of you deserve to die. Diablo Precantator clan? The sacred pristine palace? Chen Zhizhong was completely confused. He wasn't a member of the Dao cultivation world before, so he naturally didn't know much about it. However, he was sure of one thing at this moment. These people's mobility was restricted. They seemed to be unable to rush out of the energy shield and break free from the black chains. Therefore, they posed no threat to him. Let's get out of here quickly. Chen Zhizhong pondered for a moment before he turned around and ran back the way he came. His speed was very fast as he constantly shuttled through the mountain forest. It took him more than 20 minutes to return to Tanxiu. Master. Tanxiu opened his eyes and asked in surprise. Didn't you go to search around? How come you're back so soon? Chen Jizhong gulped and hurriedly said, I found some monsters in the valley more than 10 kilometers away, master. They said something about the Diablo Precantator clan and the sacred pristine palace. I couldn't figure it out, so I hurriedly came back. That's right, I also noticed one thing. Those monsters are all prisoners, and they're imprisoned there. Diablo Precantator clan? Sacred pristine palace? An incredulous look appeared on Tan Xiu's face. He had heard of these two names, but not on Earth but in the immortal world. In the past, there was the Diablo Precantator clan in the immortal world, as well as a super sect like the Sacred Pristine Palace. But according to the records, that was more than 100,000 years ago. Take me there. Tan Xiu immediately got up and said in a deep voice. Quickly, Tan Xiu appeared in the valley. A shocked look appeared on his face when he saw the hundreds of monsters. He never dreamed that there would be members of the Diablo Precantator clan on Earth. It must be noted that the Diablo Precantator clan was purged by the Sacred Pristine Palace more than 100,000 years ago. A clan that was truly exterminated. It didn't take long for the Sacred Pristine Palace to experience an unforeseen event that eventually led to the sect's defeat and its destruction by its former enemies. Someone's here again? The headless man floated over and appeared in front of the transparent energy shield. His voice sounded out of thin air. He pointed his arm at Tan Xiu and spoke again. You're this ant's master? Did you come in by yourself? Or were you imprisoned by those bastards from the Sacred Pristine Palace? Tan Xiu sized up these people. His eyes finally fell on the headless man and indifferently said, My disciple said that you're from the Diablo Precantator clan? Is that true? That's right. The headless man's voice was getting louder and louder with a sonorous murderous intent. The legless man stared at Tan Xiu and asked, Who are you? What sect are you from? And how did you enter this prison world? May I know your names, gentlemen? Asked Tan Xiu. This lord is the Diablo Precantator clan's general, Carl Burying the Dragon, said the legless man proudly. My enemies call me the barefooted demonic monster. You haven't answered our question yet, brat. The barefooted demonic monster, Carl Burying the Dragon? Tan Xiu asked incredulously. You're one of the 18 generals under the Diablo Precantator king, the barefooted demonic monster who slaughtered hundreds of millions of troops from the 36 immortal domains. You know us? The legless man was surprised. Who exactly are you? Tan Xiu cupped his fists and said, I'm Tan Xiu, a disciple of the Rosefinch Holy Sect more than 100,000 years after your Diablo Precantator clan was exterminated. My Rosefinch Holy Sect has been in the immortal world for millions of years, so I'm sure you've heard of my name. The faces of hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen greatly changed upon hearing this. They naturally had heard of the Rosefinch Holy Sect. Although the immortal domain they were in was far away from the Rosefinch Holy Sect's immortal domain, the reputation of the Rosefinch Holy Sect had shaken the entire immortal world. Tan Xiu, you have a very special aura on you, and your soul is very strange. Have you died before? Are you the one who took over your body? The legless demonic monster looked at Tan Xiu and asked. That's right. Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and nodded. Then how did you come in? Asked the legless demonic monster again. This is a prison world created by the Sacred Pristine Palace to imprison us. Apart from the Sacred Pristine Palace's people, there's no way for anyone else to enter. This is no longer the immortal world but another world. Tan Xiu shook his head. I don't know how this prison world is connected to Earth, but the Sacred Pristine Palace you mentioned was destroyed hundreds of thousands of years ago. The remaining disciples of the Sacred Pristine Palace were slaughtered by Gorfiend. Gorfiend. Ha ha ha, it turns out to be Gorfiend. Retribution. This is retribution. How could the Sacred Pristine Palace resist the revenge of a powerful enemy without our Diablo Precantator clan? Gorfiend. Ha ha ha, this lord once killed hundreds of thousands of his clansmen. I never thought he would come back from the immortal sea of sin. Damn, they all deserve to die. It's a pity that this lord didn't rush out of here. Else I could have chopped off their heads, dug out their hearts, and extinguished their souls with my own hands. I didn't expect the enemy to avenge us. Hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen looked ecstatic. But after the ecstasy, they suddenly quieted down. All of them closed their eyes and lay on the ground. Strange musical notes were emitted from their bodies as though they were holding a memorial service. Tan Xiu quietly watched them until they all stood up again. Then he slowly said, I don't know what happened between you and the sacred pristine palace, but what I want to ask is, what are your plans now that you know the enemy is dead? Plans? The hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen were confused. Their motivation to survive was to kill all the enemies of the sacred pristine palace. But now that all the enemies of the sacred pristine palace had been annihilated, they suddenly lost their spiritual pillar to continue living. Suddenly, since you haven't figured it out, then I'll ask another question, asked Tan Xiu again. You should have been imprisoned here by the sacred pristine palace hundreds of thousands of years ago. It's impossible for you to live for so long given your abilities. I want to know how you managed to survive until now in this place with almost no heaven and earth spiritual chi. It's the Diablo Precantator forbidden spell, Life and Death Nightmare, said Discus Diabolos slowly. The Diablo Precantator forbidden spell? Life and Death Nightmare? An incredulous look appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he hurriedly said, Is the legend true? Is there really such a terrifying forbidden spell? Chapter 1004. Chen Jizhong quietly listened to the conversation between Tan Xiu and the Diablo Precantator clan's people. He was shocked inwardly because he never dreamed that his master, Tan Xiu, came from another world, a place that all humans yearned for, the legendary Immortal world. At the same time, he was also shocked by the Diablo Precantator clan in front of him. They had been imprisoned here for more than 100,000 years. After more than 100,000 years, they were still alive. It was more mysterious and incredible than a myth. What's the Diablo Precantator forbidden curse, master? What's the life and death nightmare? Chen Jizhong suppressed his shock and asked curiously. The Diablo Precantator forbidden curse is a terrifying curse of the Diablo Precantator clan, explained Tan Xiu. It's called the life and death nightmare. Is this curse very powerful? Asked Chen Jizhong curiously. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and glanced at the Diablo Precantator clan in front of him. He slowly said, That's just a legend. Legend has it that the Diablo Precantator clan is proficient in a very magical forbidden curse. This secret technique has no effect on others, but it has a magical effect on their own clansmen. Once the Diablo Precantator clan uses this forbidden curse on themselves, their lifespan will increase by tens of thousands of times. Every 10,000 years, the Diablo Precantator clan can only stay awake for 100 years and fall into a deep sleep for the rest of the time. It's also for this reason that they can live for a long time, much longer than ordinary immortals. With a gloomy expression and a murderous aura that seemed to condense into a tangible substance, Discalciate Diablo said, You're right. The legend is true. But I don't know if you're lucky or unlucky to meet us in the awakening stage. The life and death nightmare is a forbidden curse of my Diablo Precantator clan. Although it can make our clansmen live for a long time, it's actually a different kind of death. In 10,000 years, we can only be awake for 100 years. Every time we wake up, the world will be different. What we once understood will also be different. However, before we can fully understand the new world, we will fall into a deep sleep again and wait for another 100 years after 10,000 years. It's a constant cycle. It's a kind of torture that ordinary people can hardly feel. If it weren't for the necessity, no one in my Diablo Precantator clan would be willing to use a forbidden spell like the life and death nightmare on themselves. Tan Xiu looked pitifully at the Diablo Precantator tribesman. How could he not be aware of this situation? Ascetic Diabolos had made it very clear that this was indeed pain and torture. Many Diablo Precantator tribesmen would rather die than seek eternal life in this cycle. Discus Diabolos gradually retracted his killing intent and looked at Tang Xiu, asking in a deep voice, Disciple of the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, are you willing to help us escape from here? To be honest, I really want to help you, but I can't do it now. Tan Xiu shook his head. Although your current strength is probably not even a 10,000th of your peak, you should be able to sense that there is a huge problem with my body and soul. Right now, I'm too weak. Even if I wanted to help you, I wouldn't be able to. Unless I can recover to the perfected golden immortal realm, otherwise I can't do it. Dismembered Diabolos pondered for a long time before he silently nodded, and said with a bit of regret, "You're right. It's indeed very difficult for you to do it with your current strength. This damn precantator array is too abstruse. Even some perfected golden immortals who don't know much about precantator arrays would find it difficult to break it. Tens of millions of our surviving Diablo precantator tribesmen were unable to break this place and escape from here, no matter how hard we tried." "You mean tens of millions of your Diablo precantator tribesmen were imprisoned here?" Tan Xiu frowned. "How come only? Freedom is the nature of my Diablo precantator tribesmen, and killing is our instinct," said Dismembered Diabolos bitterly. "Losing our freedom is better than committing suicide. Ha ha ha. The weakest of these tens of millions of elite Diablo precantator tribesmen is at the celestial immortal stage, and there are dozens of perfected golden immortals. Suicide is the most humiliating way to die, yet it has fallen on my clansmen's heads." "Why are you still alive?" asked Tanxio. Dismembered Diabolos pointed to his chest and said in a deep voice, "The flame in the heart needs to burn fiercely. The blood of our enemies must be used to wash away our shame. Among the tens of millions of people, we were the unluckiest to be chosen as the flame of vengeance. We must survive for a long time and wait. Wait for the day when we can escape and burn all the traitors of the sacred pristine palace with the flame in our hearts. It's a pity that everyone in the sacred pristine palace was killed hundreds of thousands of years ago." Tanxio shook his head. "You've been struggling at death's door for so long, yet you still can't use their blood to wash away your shame. But fortunately, your enemies are dead and your heart shackled by hatred can now be freed." Dismembered Diabolos slowly turned around and looked at the hundreds of his clansmen who were struggling at death's door. The anger on his face gradually disappeared and was replaced by deep despair. Suddenly, a smile that was uglier than crying climbed up his rough face, and he laughed wildly. "Did you hear that, my clansmen? Our enemies are dead. All of them are dead. Haven't we been living for the destruction of the sacred pristine palace? Now that we've been waiting for the result, what are we still living for?" He roared wildly. He suddenly raised his hand, and a 4-meter-long sharp saber suddenly appeared out of thin air. Hundreds of other Diablo precantator clansmen also unleashed their innate natal weapons and raised them high in the air. Outside the array, Tanxio's expression drastically changed. Looking at the actions of hundreds of Diablo precantator clansmen, he immediately shouted, "Legend has it that the Diablo precantator clan knows how to repay favors. I brought you the news of the destruction of the sacred pristine palace, and gave you a chance to free yourselves. Isn't this a great favor? If you kill yourselves now, do you want to leave with the debt you owe to others?" Hundreds of Diablo precantator clansmen turned stiff. The Diablo precantator clan loved to kill and enjoy freedom, but they were also a clan with few schemes. They could never be the leader of a force, and could only be a vassal race of some force. Loyalty. It was the greatest advantage of their clan. Sincerity. It was one of their virtues. Tanxio's words made them temporarily cancel the idea of committing suicide. Hundreds of pairs of eyes stared at Tanxio, while Discus Diabolos asked in a deep voice, "Disciple of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, how do you want us to repay you?" Tanxio was silent for a moment. Then he suddenly pointed to Chen Zhizhong next to him and said in a deep voice, "Rumor has it that your clan has a secret art that can give other races a Diablo precantator body and bloodline to create the most perfect combat tools. In any case, you've already made up your mind to die, so it's better to fulfill my disciple's wish." Discus Diabolos shot a deep look at Chen Zhizhong, and then turned his head to communicate with the hundreds of Diablo precantator clansmen behind him. Then he nodded and said, "He's the first one to discover us in more than 100,000 years. He's also a fated person of our clan. Although he's still very weak, you've done us a favor, so we naturally have to repay it. We'll agree to your request, but you must think about it clearly. If you want to obtain our inheritance, if you want to be forged into a perfect battle tool by us, you have to enter this formation. But once you come in, you'll never be able to get out again." Tan Xiu turned to look at Chen Zhizhong and said in a deep voice, Zhizhong, our ancestors have an old saying that riches and honor can only be found in danger. What's in front of you now is a broad and open road. Hence, I want to ask you something. Do you dare to enter this array and accept the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan seniors? Chen Zhizhong's expression slightly changed. If what Discus Diabolos said was true, then would he really not be able to come out after entering? Would he be able to endure the torture of loneliness if he were to be imprisoned here for countless years? No. Chen Zhizhong's heart was suddenly shaken. He realized that his master, Tan Xiu, was an expert proficient in arrays. He might be able to break this array in front of him. For a moment, Chen Zhizhong was caught in a dilemma. If his master, Tan Xiu, couldn't break this array, would he be imprisoned forever? Wouldn't it be a great opportunity for him if he could break it? What should I do? With the passage of time, Chen Zhizhong finally made up his mind. He chose to believe in his master, Tan Xiu. Since he wanted to walk on the path of immortal cultivation, he had to play the game of life and death. If he won, he would be reborn and would surely achieve unparalleled achievements in the future. But if he lost, he could only blame his bad fate. I'm willing, master. Chen Zhizhong nodded firmly with a firm expression. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and laughed loudly. You're worthy of being my good disciple. You're bound to have great achievements in the future given your wisdom. Go inside. As long as you can obtain the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan seniors, I'll definitely become a perfected golden immortal in the future and save you. Understood. Chen Zhizhong replied and strode toward the hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen. The transparent energy shield didn't stop his footsteps, allowing him to easily enter the array and come before Discus Diabolos. With an appreciative look on his face, Discus Diabolos praised, What my Diablo Precantator clan admires the most are heroes and tough men. You're very good. You're a real tough man. Chen Zhizhong took a deep breath and turned to look at Tan Xiu. Then he cupped his fists and said, If so, then I'll have to trouble you all. Discus Diabolos looked at Tan Xiu and said in a deep voice, It's better to die than to sink into oblivion. I hope you're not deceiving us. I hope what you said is true, and that everyone in the sacred pristine palace has been annihilated. You're right to trust me, Tan Xiu said seriously. Discus Diabolos nodded and suddenly let out a sharp howl. Suddenly, hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen soared into the air. They rose tens of meters high in the air and constantly changed their positions. Soon a millstone-like array appeared. Chapter 1005. Scarlet blood constantly drifted from the bodies of hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen, and their bodies gradually cracked like the dry earth. The blood drifted and rushed into the millstone-shaped formation. Gradually, the whole sky was dyed red with blood. Forbidden technique. The most terrifying and incredible technique of the Diablo Precantator clan was displayed by hundreds of them at this moment. As a column of blood extended from the millstone-shaped formation, it directly enveloped Chen Zhizhong below. Countless ancient runes poured into Chen Zhizhong's body like a stream of water. Ah! Roar! Chen Zhizhong, who was enveloped by the column of blood, howled in pain. At first, his voice was very sharp, but later, because of the heart-wrenching pain, he roared like a wild beast. Standing outside the formation, Tan Xiu looked at Chen Zhizhong's face, which had twisted in pain, with a smile at the corner of his mouth. The process of obtaining the inheritance was definitely very painful, but the benefits obtained after the pain were absolutely great. It wasn't that he hadn't considered obtaining the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan, but he knew that once he chose to obtain it, he would no longer be able to practice the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. If that happened, the loss would definitely outweigh the gain. After all, the heavenly art of cosmic genesis would definitely be countless times stronger than the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan, once it was practiced to the great accomplishment realm. Immediately, Tan Xiu sat cross-legged and released his divine sense again, quickly integrating it into the formation of the small world. What he needed to do now was to go all out to understand the formation here. If it was before, even if he didn't understand the formation here, he could still escape with Chen Zhizhong unscathed. But now, the situation was completely different. He had to thoroughly understand all the formations here in order to break the formation in front of him and rescue Chen Jizhong from inside. Otherwise, even if he could leave, Chen Jizhong was bound to be trapped in there forever. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 6 days had passed. The moment Tan Xiao opened his eyes, he saw the column of blood that enveloped Chen Jizhong gradually dissipate between heaven and earth. On Chen Jizhong's naked body, countless ancient runes surged like a tide. Tan Xiao could even clearly see countless runes in Chen Jizhong's muscles, bones, and internal organs. It's done? Tan Xiao's eyes revealed a look of anticipation, but when he shifted his gaze to the sky tens of meters high, his eyes revealed a hint of sadness. Hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen were suspended in the air like dried corpses. They were hanging on to their last breaths, waiting for the inheritance to end. At this moment, the discus devil monster suddenly opened his eyes. The only color in his gray eyes was Chen Jizhong's body. He knew that the Diablo Precantator clan had not completely disappeared from this world. Chen Jizhong, who had received their inheritance and transformation, was the seed of the Diablo Precantator clan. His bloodline contained the blood of the Diablo Precantator tribe, and his soul also bore the mark of the Diablo Precantator tribe. As long as he didn't die, the Diablo Precantator clan could take root and sprout, and a brand new Diablo Precantator clan would emerge. Disciple of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, Honorable Tan Xiao, we have fulfilled our promise and repaid your kindness. We're about to disappear from this world. I hope you can rescue the seed of our Diablo Precantator clan, and let him continue the bloodline of our clan after 10,000 years, said the discus devil monster slowly. Tan Xiao raised his arm, put his fist on his left chest, and said in a deep voice, I, Tan Xiao, assure you that I'll definitely rescue my disciple, and make him have unlimited achievements. The bloodline and soul of your Diablo Precantator clan will return to the immortal world countless years later, and restore your former glory. Thank you. The saber reappeared in front of the discus devil monster, while the innate natal weapons of the hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen also appeared. Return! Roared the discus devil monster. Return! 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 Hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen also roared. As the saber swept across their bodies, a ball of flame bloomed from their bodies. Finally, the raging flames began to burn and their bodies were burned to ashes in the raging fire. Death. It was a very pure death. It wasn't an ordinary death, but a true soul dissipation. Chen Jizhong's eyes slowly opened and 2 lines of tears flowed down his cheeks, dripping on his bronze chest and falling on the heavy ground under his feet. 3 bows and 9 kowtows. It was the human clan's grand ceremony of worship. After finishing all this, Chen Jizhong walked to Tan Xiao with a sorrowful look in his eyes. He stopped in front of the transparent energy shield and respectfully kowtowed 3 times to Tan Xiao. Then he got up and asked, Why, master? Tan Xiao knew what Chen Jizhong was referring to. With a complicated expression in his eyes, he shook his head and said, I'm sure I can break this array and tear this cage for the Diablo Precantator clansmen. I can let them leave this pocket world and go to the wonderful world outside. Why? Asked Chen Jizhong again. You don't understand the Diablo Precantator clan. Tan Xiao shook his head and said, You don't understand the Diablo Precantator clansmen, who cast the life and death nightmare on themselves. It's a kind of sorrow and never-ending pain for them to live. Death is the best ending for them, and also the ultimate relief. There's hope in the future as long as they're alive, said Chen Jizhong. Who can be sure that the forbidden spell they cast on themselves won't be able to be broken in the future? You're omnipotent in my heart. You'll definitely find a way in the future. Don't talk about the future. Tell me about the present, said Tan Xiao in a deep voice. If I release them now and take them out of this pocket world to the outside earth, can they control themselves? Tell me, with the bloodthirsty nature of the Diablo Precantator clan, can they control themselves? Can the humans on Earth stop these Diablo Precantator clansmen, who are at least at the golden immortal stage? If they start a massacre, the outside world will be littered with corpses and rivers of blood. Listen, I'm talking about the best ending. The worst ending is that they can easily blow up Earth, leading to the destruction of all humans on Earth. They can tear open the space barrier with their own strength and go to another world to survive. They can even find the passage back to the immortal world. But can you bear the destruction of Earth and the extinction of humanity? Can you just watch your family and clansmen die in the hands of the Diablo Precantator clansmen? Tan Xiu's words were sonorous and forceful. Chen Zhizhong was rendered speechless by Tan Xiu's words. He just blamed Tan Xiu for deceiving hundreds of Diablo Precantator clansmen, but now he understood. It wasn't that his master didn't want to save them, but he couldn't bear the terrible situation caused by releasing these Diablo Precantator clansmen. He loosened his clenched fists and looked guilty. He knelt in front of Tan Xiu again. He recalled his master's last request to the Diablo Precantator clan, and the benefits he obtained. The guilt he felt toward Tan Xiu grew stronger, and his feelings toward Tan Xiu increased crazily. "I'm sorry, master." Tan Xiu's expression eased as he shook his head and said, "You don't need to apologize to me. We're master and disciple. There are only two kinds of people in the cruel immortal world. The first kind is blood relatives, and the second kind is a master and disciple who are like father and son. You're my disciple, so you're naturally the closest person to me. Even if you make some mistakes, I won't blame you as long as it's not something I can't make up for." Master and disciple were like father and son. This sentence was deeply engraved in Chen Zhizhong's heart and soul. "All right, get up," Tan Xiu said. "By the way, tell me what level you've reached through the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan. How many benefits did you get?" Chen Zhizhong got up and clenched his fists again. "I don't know how strong I am now, master. But I'm much stronger than before. I have a feeling that even if there's a small mountain in front of me right now, I can still smash it with one punch." Tan Xiu nodded in satisfaction and asked, "What else?" "Hundreds of predecessors of the Diablo Precantator clan passed on all their lifelong knowledge to me," said Chen Zhizhong. "I got a lot of knowledge from the Diablo Precantator clan, including witchcraft, secret arts, and forbidden spells. Strictly speaking, I'm actually a member of the Diablo Precantator tribe now." "Very well." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "You should have heard the promise I made to the seniors of the Diablo Precantator clan very clearly. I hope you can restore the glory of the Diablo Precantator clan in the future, and let all the races, be they humans, immortals, demons, witches, ghosts, demons, spirits, and gods, know that the Diablo Precantator clan was not completely extinct hundreds of thousands of years ago. Live well for me. I hope that my apprentice can grow up with me, and have limitless achievements, become a supreme existence in the immortal world, and maybe even have the chance to fight our way into the higher dimension, the God world." Chen Zhizhong's heart surged as he shouted, "Master, I'll follow in your footsteps and kill my way to the immortal world and the divine world. I, Chen Zhizhong, will always be your closest disciple." "Well done." Tan Xiu burst into laughter. "I used to be a supreme in the immortal world, and I'll become a supreme in the divine world in the future. And my apprentice can't be any worse than me." "What?" Chen Zhizhong's expression suddenly froze and incredulity filled his eyes. He looked at Tan Xiu and asked with a trembling voice, Master, what did you just say? You said you used to be a supreme in the immortal world? Now that you've obtained the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan, I naturally don't need to hide it from you anymore." Tan Xiu nodded. "I was indeed a supreme in the immortal world, a peerless powerhouse who stood above the hundreds of millions of races in the immortal world. But because of the sneak attack by my enemies, I had to start all over again. Remember, you must never tell anyone about this except for you, not even the people you think are the closest to you. Else, once the news that I'm still alive is known by my supreme enemies in the immortal world, I'm afraid we'll all die." Chapter 1006. A solemn look appeared on Chen Zhizhong's face. He who had obtained the inheritance already knew a lot of information. His master was once a supreme in the immortal world, yet he was still ambushed by the enemy. Although he didn't know how his master survived, it was probably a great disaster for him to end up like this. Therefore, his master's enemies were very powerful, far from what he could contend with. Therefore, it was of utmost importance to block the news. Don't worry, master, said Chen Zhizhong. I'll never divulge this matter to anyone, not even my family. It's good that you remember that. Tan Xiao nodded. Let's not waste any more time here. I've already comprehended most of this array. I'll be able to crack it in 2 days at most. We'll leave then. You consolidate your current realm while I'm comprehending this array. Understood. After saluting, Chen Zhizhong turned around and walked to a bluestone not far away. He then sat cross-legged to consolidate his cultivation. Tan Xiao didn't want to waste time, so he devoted all his attention to comprehending the array. If it were the Diablo Precantator clan's array, it would take him some effort to crack it. After all, he didn't know much about the Diablo Precantator clan's array, but the principle of the Sacred Pristine Palace's array was similar to what he knew. It was a pity that he had to start from scratch, and his cultivation was too low. Else, he would be able to comprehend the array in front of him in a flash and easily crack it with a lift of his hand. 2 days passed by quickly. When Tan Xiao mastered the array of the entire pocket world, he had already understood all the mysteries of the array within the array in front of him. The array was interconnected and profound. Fortunately for Tan Xiao, he directly comprehended the array of the entire pocket world. If he were to directly comprehend the mysteries of the array in front of him, it was likely that he wouldn't be able to fully comprehend it in a short time. The design of the array, as well as several novel outlines, were still a bit beneficial to Tan Xiao. Break. As Tan Xiao pointed his finger, the transparent energy shield covering the valley suddenly rippled, and a crack suddenly appeared in the blink of an eye. Master. Chen Zhizhong had already woken up from his cultivation the moment Tan Xiao broke the formation. As the crack widened, he dashed in front of Tan Xiao at lightning speed. Due to the surge in his cultivation, he was still unable to control this power. If Tan Xiao had not dodged it, he would have crashed into Tan Xiao's arms. Tan Xiao smiled and said, "Looks like you still need some time if you want to stabilize your realm and completely control the power you have now. When you go back, hand over your family business to your son to take care of. Even if he didn't want to, he could go back to Star City to take over. As for you, you need to go into secluded cultivation in your clan grounds. Cultivating there will allow you to achieve twice the results with half the effort." Chen Zhizhong quickly asked, "Master, where is the clan?" "Nine Dragons Island," answered Tan Xiao with a smile. Chen Zhizhong immediately understood. When Tan Xiao bought Nine Dragons Island, he knew that Tan Xiao didn't have enough money, so he took out most of the money. Further, he also knew that Tan Xiao rebuilt Nine Dragons Island, but he didn't expect that his master, Tan Xiao, would choose to establish the Tang sect there. "I'll arrange it immediately after I get back, master." Tan Xiao nodded and instantly dashed into the array. Under Chen Zhizhong's confused eyes, his figure flickered and formed a small hurricane as Tan Xiao's items kept falling into his hands, and were then stored into his interspatial ring. After a long while, Tan Xiao came out of the array, and threw a war blade to Chen Zhizhong. Then he lightly smiled and said, "This is the war blade of Discus Diabolos." Discus Diabolos used to have a prominent status and commanded countless Diablo Precantator clan's powerhouses. His warblade is also a good Immortal Precantator artifact. You should refine this warblade and use it as your weapon before you break through to the Immortal stage. When you're strong enough in the future, you can smelt this warblade and refine it into an Immortal artifact that truly belongs to you. "Understood," replied Chen Zhizhong with a satisfied expression. Although a large number of items left by the Diablo Precantator clan were all taken away by his master, Tan Xiao, he was well aware that he was the one who got the most benefits. Just the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan, and the transformation of his body, were a once-in-a-lifetime great opportunity for him. Weapons. They were just worldly possessions. However, Chen Zhizhong didn't know how many treasures were contained in the weapons and interspatial rings of the Diablo Precantator clan that Tan Xiao collected in the immortal world. He also didn't know how valuable these things were. It must be noted that the number of Diablo Precantator clan's clansmen who left their interspatial rings and weapons were not only in the hundreds. There were also more than 12 million members of the Diablo Precantator clan. Tan Xiao's method of collecting them was very fast. It was incredibly fast, but it still took him a long time to collect everything. Fortunately, he had directly refined an interspatial ring of the Diablo Precantator clan. Else he wouldn't have been able to store so many things in his interspatial ring. Chen Zhizhong had never been to the Immortal world, and didn't know much about Immortal Precantator artifacts. Otherwise, he would have realized that the value of the Immortal Precantator artifacts Tan Xiao took away was enough for him to buy a large starfield in the Immortal world and recruit millions of immortals to work for him. Let's go. Tan Xiao glanced at his left index finger with satisfaction, and said with a smile, "We haven't explored this pocket world yet, Master," said Chen Zhizhong hurriedly. "If there are a lot of ores in here, we have to take them away." Tan Xiao chuckled and said, "I have the entire pocket world's array in my control, so I can easily perceive the situation in this pocket world. This place is actually a prison, and there are no other precious ores here except for the 36 immortal stones. I'll directly take the immortal stones after we leave, and this pocket world will no longer exist." Chen Zhizhong suddenly understood and smilingly said, "I also want to learn arrays from you in the future, Master." "Is there no array knowledge in the inheritance of the hundreds of Diablo Precantator clan's powerhouses?" asked Tan Xiao. "Yes, but those are all Precantator arrays, and they're not very powerful." Chen Zhizhong forced a smile. "They can't be compared to the truly powerful immortal arrays in the Immortal world." "You're right." Tan Xiao smiled and said, "The Diablo Precantator clan is very powerful, and what they pursue more is their own strength, as well as the quality of their weapons. They don't pay much attention to auxiliary feng shui arrays. I'll teach it to you later if you want to learn it." "That's right, I forgot something. Unleash your strongest attack. Let me see what realm you've reached now." Chen Zhizhong replied and flashed to the distance. When he was a kilometer away, he fiercely punched the hilltop in front of him. One blow. The tens of meters high hilltop was directly blasted away. Its power was comparable to that of a nascent soul stage powerhouse. Immediately after, he used the saber and fiercely slashed the hilltop. Suddenly, 100-meter deep and 10-meter wide hole was blasted out by him. "What do you think of my current strength, Master?" With a bit of excitement, Chen Zhizhong hurriedly asked after returning to Tan Xiao. "Not bad." Tan Xiao nodded and said, "Your power is comparable to that of a late-stage nascent soul stage powerhouse. If it's just based on cultivation, I can't even compare to you. But I'm afraid I can easily kill you in a fight. There are several reasons. First, you can't fully control your own power. Second, you're really lacking in combat experience, especially when it comes to fights between experts. Third, it's very difficult for a nascent soul stage powerhouse to defeat me." A worshipful look appeared in Chen Zhizhong's eyes as he said, "Your strength is progressing too fast, Master. I still remember when we first met, your strength was probably not as strong as mine before I received the inheritance. But it's only been a year and a half, yet you're able to defeat a nascent soul stage powerhouse. That's really amazing. I think it won't take you a few years to cross the tribulation and become an immortal, no?" Tan Xiao couldn't help but laugh. "How can it be so easy to cross the tribulation and become an immortal? It's a matter of course that the cultivation speed is fast in the early stage, but it will be more difficult later on. It takes a lot of time to break through each level. My luck is good and I've had a lot of fortuitous encounters, so I can be comparable to a nascent soul stage powerhouse in just a year and a half. But it's hard to say in the future." Chen Zhizhong suddenly understood. He didn't know much about cultivation, and the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator tribe was only about the situation of the Diablo Precantator tribe and their cultivation situation. There was no shallow attempt at the immortal world. However, even if Tan Xiao said so, his heart was still full of worship. After all, he knew how powerful the supremes in the immortal world were. Even during the heyday of the Diablo Precantator clan, no one seemed to have broken through to the supremacy stage. Even the previous kings of the Diablo Precantator clan were only at the perfected golden immortal stage. Soon after, Tan Xiao and Chen Zhizhong appeared at the exit of the cave passage and looked back at the pocket world in front of them. Tan Xiao's eyes didn't have the slightest fluctuation. After ordering Chen Zhizhong to wait for him outside, He immediately used his means to break the entire array. Immortal stones come. Along with his shout, 36 immortal stones flew in front of him and were directly put into his interspatial ring. These immortal stones were of little use to him, but they were the best treasures for Gu Yan'er and Ji Qimei. They were now on Earth, and there was no immortal qi on Earth at all. Whether it was to restore their strength or heal their injuries, the speed would be very slow. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. Tanxiu watched as the pocket world in front of him gradually became illusory. He no longer stayed here and seemed to have turned into a bolt of lightning as he dashed out of the cave. Whoosh! Less than a minute after Tanxiu's figure appeared outside the cave, the whole mountain directly collapsed along with the destruction of the pocket world. Chapter 1007. Tanxiu took Qinjizhong, Tang 28's group of 5, and soared into the air. Standing hundreds of meters in the air, he looked at the collapsed mountain peak and sighed inwardly. The Diablo Precantator clan was truly pitiful. The sacred pristine palace was truly hateful. The feud between the two sides from hundreds of thousands of years ago had completely come to an end along with the destruction of the pocket world and the collapse of this mountain peak. At present, there was only one big puzzle in Tanxiu's mind. What kind of existence was Earth? Why were there so many strange spaces connected to the Earth? However, this puzzle had been in his mind for a long time, but he also knew that it would be very difficult for him to figure it out in a short time. Therefore, he no longer thought about it and quickly left Changbai Mountain with Qinjizhong, Tang 28, and the others. In addition, he separated from Qinjizhong halfway through the journey. Take care, master. I'll be waiting for you in Star City. Qinjizhong was somewhat reluctant before parting. After the experience, he had developed deep feelings for Tanxiu and regarded Tanxiu as his master. I won't be staying in the imperial capital for a long time, said Tanxiu with a smile. Hurry up and solve your business issues. I'll take you to Nine Dragons Island when I go back. Understood. Qinjizhong replied and quickly left. At the imperial capital, it was the first time for Tang 28's group of 5 to come here. They all knew that the imperial capital was the capital of China and one of the most prosperous metropolises in the country. Therefore, even though they were much more mature than their peers, they were still a bit curious. Where are we going, sect master? Asked Tang 28 curiously after coming out of the airport with Tanxiu. Don't ask this kind of question again in the future, said Tanxiu. You're to follow me wherever I go. Remember, you'll be my shadow in the future, and the 4 of you will be Tang 28's shadows. You must learn to be silent and execute my orders if you want to follow me. Tang 28's group of 5 hurriedly nodded and dared not speak again. Tanxiu came to the capital this time for Tang Guosheng's 80th birthday. If he was still abroad, it would have been fine if he couldn't make it back in time. Since he was already back in the country, and it was on the way, he decided to stay in the capital for a while to celebrate with the old master. After getting on the taxi, Tanxiu told the driver the address of the Tang family's residence. A strange expression appeared on the driver's face as he said, "Little brother, you're not from the imperial capital, are you? In the past few days, martial law had been imposed over there. Even if I send you there, I won't be able to reach the address you gave me. We can only park nearby." Tanxiu asked in surprise, "Why is there a martial law?" The taxi driver said mysteriously, "Little brother, you are an outsider. I'm afraid you don't know. Tomorrow was Elder Tang's 80th birthday. The Tang family has always been very low-key in the past, but it's different this time. The Tang family is getting more and more powerful. It just so happens that the Tang family has something to do with the 80th birthday of their old master. So the Tang family is preparing to hold a big celebration. Several streets in the vicinity are under martial law to avoid any troublemakers. It's fine during the day, but after 10 p.m., the surrounding roads will be blocked and all vehicles are prohibited from approaching. This Tang family seems to be very famous." Tanxiu nodded. The taxi driver gave Tanxiu, "Don't talk nonsense if you don't know look." After starting the car, he said while driving, "Little brother, who in the capital doesn't know about the Tang family? Even in China, anyone with some ability knows about Tanxiu's existence. Elder Tang used to be a senior statesman of our country, a real big shot, and a former great general. Also, haven't you heard that the Tang family's archenemy, the Yao family, fell inexplicably last year? The current Tang family may not be the first or second in the capital, but they're definitely in the top 3. So powerful? Asked Tan Xiao with a faint smile. The taxi driver didn't pay attention to Tan Xiao's expression. He held the steering wheel and looked at the road ahead. He nodded and said, "Of course they're powerful. It's a pity that I didn't reincarnate into this family. Otherwise, I would be able to live like an emperor if I were a member of the Tang family. You don't know, but the status of the Tang family's members in the capital is simply ridiculously high. Some time ago, a young master of the Tang family called Tang Wei smashed the famous Paradise Charm Club in the capital. The scene was very big. What was the result? Nothing happened to young Master Tang Wei, but the Paradise Charm Club's owner, as well as those silk pants young masters who offended young Master Tang Wei, bowed and apologized. I heard that they even compensated young Master Tang Wei with a lot of money." Tang Wei. Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. He didn't expect that Tang Wei would cause such a big mess. Even if he got the upper hand in that matter, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to avoid being cleaned up after he returned home. It was because the elders of the Tang family had issued a death order that the Tang family's juniors must never be like those silk pants young masters who caused trouble outside. "I'm afraid this guy hasn't been having a good time recently," Tang Xiao thought with a gloating expression. Half an hour later, when the taxi drove in the downtown area and just got off from an overpass, the road ahead was congested. "Why is Qingfeng Road blocked again? Is there a traffic accident ahead?" The taxi driver asked through the walkie-talkie and quickly got a reply. "It's a traffic accident. Moreover, it's like a movie with several cars chasing and killing each other. It seems that more than a dozen people have died. It's been a long time since such a big mess has appeared in the capital. Brother, you're very unlucky. If you're stuck on Qingfeng Road, you better pray for your luck. I'm afraid that it won't be possible to clear the road for a few hours." "Who's so bold?" asked the taxi driver hurriedly. "They actually dare to cause such a big commotion in the capital? And so many people have died? Aren't they afraid of suffering a big misfortune under the feet of the emperor?" "I don't know about the specifics." "All right." As the call ended, the taxi driver looked at Tan Xiao in the front seat and forced a smile. "I'm afraid we'll be stuck here for a long time, little brother. It's impossible for us to turn around now. You can get off now and take the subway if you're in a hurry." Tan Xiao pondered for a moment. Then he took out 200 yuan from his pocket and handed it to the taxi driver, saying, "Let's get off here, master. Please take the money and keep the change." The taxi driver didn't expect that Tan Xiao would be so generous and hurriedly said, "I don't need so much, little brother. I don't need even one." Tan Xiao pushed the door open and waved his hand with a smile. He then led Tang 28's group of 5 to the roadside and walked forward along the road. He could clearly hear the conversation between the taxi driver and the others through the walkie-talkie. He was very curious about who was so bold to cause such a big commotion in the downtown area. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiao and the others appeared near the scene of the accident. It was a spacious intersection, but more than a dozen cars had crashed into each other, creating a mess on the ground. A large number of rescue workers were treating the injured and lifting the corpses from the vehicles, causing Tan Xiao to furrow his brows. "What happened, big brother?" asked Tan Xiao as he approached a middle-aged man who kept sighing and handed him a cigarette. "What a sin." The middle-aged man forced a smile. "I don't know how some men offended Second Fan. That fella brought a large number of people and drove more than a dozen cars to chase them. As a result, this series of car accidents happened. It seems like 3 of the men died, and the last one ran away with injuries. Second brother Fan actually didn't let him go. He brought a large group of people and chased after them. He didn't even say to save the people who got involved in the accident first." "Who's Second Fan?" asked Tan Xiao with a frown. The middle-aged man glanced at Tan Xiao and asked, "Little brother, you don't sound like a local from your accent, do you? You don't even know who Second Fan is?" "I really don't know." Tan Xiao shook his head. "I'm from Star City and just arrived in the imperial capital today." "No wonder. The middle-aged man nodded. Second Fan is the son of the Fan family's patriarch in the imperial capital. Although no one from the Fan family is involved in politics, it's a very famous and wealthy family. Do you know the Sky Pigeon Group, one of the top 500 companies in the world? That's the Fan family's company. The Fan family's reputation in the imperial capital has never been good. Now that Second Fan has stirred up such a big mess, I'm afraid their reputation has become even worse. Alas, if I had such a good-for-nothing son like Second Fan, I would have broken his legs and chained him at home with an iron chain, so that he wouldn't go out and court disasters and troubles. Tan Xiao nodded and curiously asked, "Then where are they going now?" "How would I know? A large group of people chased after them, while one person ran away. God knows where they are now." "You don't even know which direction they went?" asked Tan Xiao. The middle-aged man pointed to the northeast and said, "I know. Over there. But don't think about joining in the fun at this time, little brother. It won't be fun if the god of misfortune bumps into you and gets you involved. Young man, don't be so curious." "Thank you, big brother," Tan Xiao said with a smile. Immediately after, Tan Xiao took Tang 28's group of 5 and quickly rushed to the northeast. He wouldn't have cared if he didn't bump into them. But now that he encountered this matter, he wanted to figure out what was going on. He had heard of the Fan family, but he didn't have any dealings with them. However, the one who had dealings with this family was a friend of his, Qin Xiaoyang. Tan Xiao heard from Qin Xiaoyang that the Fan family's eldest brother was his sworn brother. He also planned to introduce him to Tan Xiao when he had the time. The most important thing was that some of the Fan family's businesses were in a cooperative relationship with the Qin family. Once something happened to the Fan family, the Qin family's influence would be greatly affected. "Hello, Xiaoyang. Did you hear about the big mess the Fan family's Second Fan family made?" Tan Xiao dialed Qin Xiaoyang's number on the way to the northeast. "I heard about it. I got the news 10 minutes ago," said Qin Xiaoyang hurriedly. "This damned second brother Fan was simply too audacious. He caused a big trouble this time, and I'm afraid the whole Fan family will be dragged into it. I'm at home now, talking to my father about the business with the Fan family. Alas, I'm afraid our family will also suffer some losses." Chapter 1008. Holding the phone, Tan Xiao's eyes were full of sympathy. The chase and killing on the streets of the imperial capital was bound to attract the attention of countless people. Most importantly, this was just the beginning. It was likely that there would be more horrifying killings in the imperial capital in the future. As a friend, I'll give you a piece of advice. Immediately stop all business dealings with the Fan family. You must make a clean break even if you suffer huge losses. After saying that, Tan Xiao immediately hung up. As for what Qin Xiaoyang and his father decided, it had nothing to do with him. Corpse aura. This was the aura he sensed at the murder scene. The person who left this corpse aura was likely to be in cahoots with the Second Fan family. If that was the case, then the Fan family would face imminent disaster. Anyone who had a deep relationship with the Fan family would be implicated. Imperial Capital, Dragon Village Villa Complex. The King Villa was the most luxurious villa in the entire Dragon Village Villa Complex. It had a European style and had 4 floors with luxurious interior decoration. Qin Xiaoyang hung up the phone in a daze inside the spacious study room. In front of him, a middle-aged man and another young man looked at him with dissatisfaction. It was Qin Xiefeng. The big boss of the Qin group had a net worth of at least 50 billion yuan. He could be regarded as a top super-rich even in the entire Wuxia. He was a thin man with a wise and far-sighted look in his eyes. Although he was dissatisfied with his son answering the phone at this time, he still lit a Cuban cigar, took a few deep puffs and said, "Xiaoji is a government official and usually doesn't care about business. But what about Xiaoyang? Tell me, what should we do now?" Qin Xiaoyang raised his head and said in a deep voice, "Stop all business dealings with the Fan family and draw a clear line with them. We'll no longer have any connection with them in the future." "Bam nonsense!" Qin Xiefeng angrily shouted. "I thought you've made great progress in these years, but I didn't expect you to be so stupid in this matter. Do you know that our Qin family and the Fan family have invested at least 10 billion yuan in our business dealings? That's 10 billion. Do you think we'll stop it just because you say so? Don't you know how heavy the loss will be for our family? Qin Shaoji frowned and then said, Xiaoyang, we've invested tens of billions of yuan in this cooperation project. Stopping all of them will make us suffer heavy losses. Even the board of directors of the group will have a hard time approving it. Unless Dad has the final say, we need to come up with a reason that can convince those sensible people. Qin Xiaoyang raised the mobile phone in his hand and bitterly said, Dad, big brother, do you know who called me just now? Who? Qin Shaoji asked curiously. Qin Xiefeng also frowned as a puzzled look flashed across his eyes. It's Tan Xiao, said Qin Xiaoyang. Qin Xiefeng was confused and asked, Tang Xiao? Which Tan Xiao? His words came to an abrupt halt as a handsome face appeared in his mind. His heartbeat sped up several beats as he asked in a deep voice. The Tan Xiao you mentioned, is he the one from the Tang family in the imperial capital? The owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation? The famous little divine doctor of Wuxia? Qin Xiaoyang forced a smile and said, Yeah, it's him. My answer just now is actually his words. Qin Xiefeng's expression turned solemn as he said in a deep voice, Xiaoyang, tell me what Tan Xiao just said. After repeating Tan Xiao's words, Qin Xiaoyang finally said, Dad, I have some understanding of Tan Xiao. We're partners and friends. He may be 21 or 22 years old this year, but he has an extremely mature and steady character. Every remark he makes is carefully thought out. He just called me all of a sudden, so he should know that our Qin family and the Fan family have a deep cooperative relationship. That's why he revealed some information to me. Qin Xiefeng got up from his chair and smoked a cigar as he paced back and forth in his study. A bit of hesitation could be seen on his resolute face. From Tan Xiao's call just now, he faintly realized that the Fan family was about to encounter a big problem. Once something big happened to the Fan family, the cooperation between the Qin family and the Fan family was bound to be greatly affected. It would be very troublesome if the Qin family was involved in some matters. But it was tens of billions of investment. Even if he immediately issued an order to stop the cooperation and try to recover some losses as much as possible, the final loss was likely to reach 5 billion. What should he do? Qin Xiefeng stopped by the window and looked at the scenery outside. Then he suddenly asked, Can I talk to Tan Xiao personally? It'll be very difficult, Dad. Qin Xiaoyang forced a smile. Tan Xiao just hung up the phone after he said that to me. That means he doesn't want to talk anymore. Even if you call him, I'm afraid he won't tell you anything. Qin Xiefeng sighed and helplessly said, Forget it. Since it's Tan Xiao who sent the news, I'm afraid the Fan family is really going to encounter a big problem. We'll completely stop the cooperation with the Fan family and withdraw our investment as fast as possible. We'll accept it even if we suffer a huge loss. Isn't this decision too hasty, Dad? Qin Shaoji quickly said. You made such a big decision just because of Tan Xiao's call. If nothing happens to the Fan family later, I'm afraid we'll thoroughly offend the Fan family. There are some things you don't understand, Xiaoji, said Qin Xiefeng. The Tang family in the imperial capital is one of the top aristocratic families in the entire Wuxia country. Whether it is the wealth, power, or connections, the Tang family can crush the Fan family. A long time ago, I wanted to have a relationship with such a real aristocratic family. It's best if I can establish a deep friendship with them. I didn't manage to do it, but Xiaoyang did. I only learned about his friendship with Tan Xiao later. Therefore, I sent some people to secretly investigate some information about Tan Xiao. The result of the investigation was shocking. Tan Xiao has become the most outstanding descendant of the Tang family. Especially since he cured his father, Tang Yunda, his status in the Tang family has risen. Even the old patriarch of the Tang family is very concerned about Tan Xiao. This time, it's a big gamble for our Qin family. And the outcome of this gamble is not a clean loss. The loss of about 5 billion yuan is still something our Qin family can afford. But it's definitely worth it to deepen the friendship between Xiaoyang and Tang Xiao. That's right. The wise and far-sighted look in Qin Xiefeng's eyes turned more intense. After he stopped talking, he took a few puffs of his cigar and sighed. Regardless of whether the news about Tan Xiao is true or not, Xiaoyang trusts him unreservedly. Our Qin family trusts him unreservedly, so we can get his recognition and friendship. But if it's true, the Fan family will be in big trouble. It's definitely the wisest choice for our Qin family to cut ties with them in time. What you said is very reasonable, Dad, asked Qin Xiaoji curiously. But I still have a question. Can Tan Xiu really inherit the position of the old patriarch of the Tang family and become the future patriarch of the Tang family? Your vision is still too small. Qin Xiefeng shook his head. I'm afraid that Tan Xiu doesn't care about the patriarch position of the Tang family. Do you know how much wealth Tan Xiu has now? How much? Qin Xiaoji was confused. His personal wealth is more than 10 billion yuan? Xiaoji, you must be well informed if you want to go further in the future. Qin Xiefeng sneered. According to my previous investigation, Tan Xiu's personal wealth is probably tens of billions. The magnificent Tang Corporation has been making a lot of moves in the recent half a year, let alone the profits from their extremely popular products. Just the income from the development of Star City's new metro and the sale of the properties they bought internally are enough to earn them a lot of money. How is that possible? Qin Xiaoji was shocked. Why is it impossible? Qin Xiefeng sighed. The magnificent Tang Corporation's products are simply in short supply in the market. As long as they can produce them, the market will never be able to digest them no matter how many products they produce. Such a terrifying profit is definitely something that all businessmen in the business world are extremely envious of. As for the development of Star City's new metro, do you know who are the partners of the magnificent Tang Corporation? I don't know. Qin Xiaoji shook his head. Big brother, let me explain it to you, Qin Xiaoyang said. There are a total of 7 forces involved in the development of Star City's new metro. They are the Bai family in the imperial capital, the Chu family in the imperial capital, the Long family in Star City, the Ouyang family in Jingmen Island, the Miao family in Haiqing province, and the mysterious Xiaomingzhen. Each of these 7 forces possessed wealth in the tens of billions as a foundation. There's one more thing that I'm afraid even our dad doesn't know. What is it? Qin Xiaoji was confused. When these 7 forces joined hands to develop Star City's new metro, Tan Xiu was not yet a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital. He didn't even know that he was a member of the Tang family at that time. Being able to join hands with the other 6 forces was all achieved by his own ability. Furthermore, he's also the leader among them. His Qin Xiaoji was frightened by his younger brother's words and couldn't help but gasp. He had heard of a lot of monstrous geniuses, but he had never heard of such a monstrous genius. This was too strong. Qin Xiefeng was also a bit shocked. After a long while he sighed and said, Tan Xiu's power is far more than this. Rumor has it that the Amur tiger was killed by Tan Xiu. Rumor has it that the Tang family was able to defeat the Yao family because of Tan Xiu. You know Zhang Yueming, right? He's my old friend of many years. He once told me that the world will definitely belong to Tang Xiu in the future when we were drinking together. Qin Xiaoji fell into silence. He didn't believe his younger brother, Qin Xiaoyang, but he absolutely believed his father. Since they said so, then it was very likely that Tan Xiu was very powerful and terrifying. Qin Xiefeng extinguished his cigar and waved his hand. All right, Xiaoyang. Help me immediately stop the business cooperation with the Fan family. Also, go find Tan Xiu and see if you can get some useful information from him. Xiaoji, you don't know how to do business, so go back first. Chapter 1009. It was a bustling block with high-rise buildings, rows upon rows of shops, and a dazzling array of goods. Yet, a faint smell of blood lingered in the air in such a place. As Tan Xiu led Tang 28's group of 5 to shuttle through the block, the gunshots became clearer and clearer. Finally, when they appeared at an intersection, they saw the tragic scene in front of them. Dozens of cars had crashed into each other, and countless casualties could be seen everywhere. It's a big mess. Tan Xiu looked at the dozens of police cars blocked in the periphery, while dozens of armed policemen were engaged in a fierce gunfight with more than a dozen bandits. A bit of helplessness could be seen on his handsome face. At this moment, he once again sensed the presence of corpse energy, and it was from those bandits. You guys, go deal with those people. Tanxiu calmly ordered. Tang 28 nodded in response. He had just taken a few steps when he suddenly stopped and looked at his 4 companions who were standing still. Immediately after, he looked at Tanxiu and then at the 4 children, saying, I chose you. You must obey sect master's orders if you want to follow him. But we haven't killed anyone, said one of the teenagers hesitantly. Tang 28 looked at Tanxiu with a hesitant look on his face. In fact, he had never killed anyone. Although he had lived a hard life with no fixed abode and no one to rely on, fighting with other children and being bullied by others were common occurrences, he still had an inexplicable fear toward killing people. Tanxiu looked at the 5 children and sneered. I told you to deal with them, not to kill them. Such an occasion isn't suitable for killing people. You just need to cripple them and knock them out. However, I just found out one thing today. Your hands haven't been stained with blood, and you haven't killed any enemies yet. That's a very serious problem. It seems that there's still a gap between the spiritual transformation you underwent in the illusion and reality. Tang 28's spirit was shaken and he quickly said, We'll go right away, sect master. His voice faded away. He then led his 4 companions and ran toward the distance. Even if one stared at them with wide eyes, they would only be able to see a few afterimages given their speed. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't even notice that someone was passing by. Tanxiu's gaze swept past the corpses at the crossroads, and finally landed on a few wounded people who were curled up on the ground, holding their stomachs or wailing in pain. Save them. Tanxiu no longer hesitated. Using the colliding cars as cover, he ran toward the intersection and successfully arrived at a car that was almost scrapped. Help me, my leg is stuck. The driver's door of a Buick sedan was open. A fat middle-aged man with blood all over his face in pain saw Tanxiu squatting outside the door, and immediately begged. Tanxiu's spiritual sense covered a radius of hundreds of meters. Looking at the middle-aged fat man in pain, he quickly got up and got into the car. With the strength of his hands, he easily pushed the thing that was stuck to the middle-aged fat man. Poo-pee-you. Tanxiu quickly took out a silver needle and pierced it into 2 acupoints on the middle-aged fat man's body. Then, he carefully pulled him out of the car and said in a low voice, Don't worry. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. Your injuries are very serious. The bones in your legs are broken, but I've sealed the wound. You won't bleed too much, so it won't be a problem for you to keep your life. What you need to do now is to sit here and not move. Wait for the police to subdue those criminals, and then the doctors will rush here to give you the next treatment. The fat middle-aged man grabbed Tanxiu and hurriedly said, Doctor, can my legs be healed later? Tanxiu patted his shoulder and nodded. Don't worry. I'll go to the hospital to find you after everything here is over. I'm sure your legs will be healed by then. But I still need to treat the others, so pay attention to your safety. The fat middle-aged man was horrified. Doctor, you're going to save people now? Heavens! Are you crazy? Those criminals are fighting with the police now. If you go now, bullets don't have eyes. What if you get shot? Tanxiu smiled indifferently and said, Don't worry. Since I can save other people's lives from the king of hell, I can also save my own life. Upon seeing that Tanxiu had made up his mind and was about to leave, the fat middle-aged man immediately asked, Doctor, what's your name? You saved me, so I must know your name. Tanxiu. Tanxiu replied without turning his head. He used another car as a cover, and ran toward the injured man who was lying on the ground and twitching 7 or 8 meters away. Bullets brushed past his shoulder. The police nearby shouted at him, but he ignored them. Several bullets were aimed at him, but he dodged them without leaving any trace. After a while, Tanxiu grabbed the seriously injured man and quickly carried him. He then rushed toward a smashed off-road vehicle a few meters away. In just a few seconds, the dozens of police officers were sweating profusely, while some people who were hiding in the surrounding places peeked with their hearts hanging in their throats. At the northeast corner of the intersection, the 30-story building was the Big Golden Eagle store. From the first floor to the 32nd floor, there were all kinds of dazzling goods, and the prices were also very high. The 6th floor was the clothing area, mainly selling all kinds of branded women's clothing from all over the world. At one of the windows, Tian Xiaoming was sweating profusely. She nervously held the camera and pointed the camera at the fierce gunfight downstairs. I'm very sad and angry. I'm sad to see those innocent people fall in a pool of blood. I can only watch their life force quickly pass away, but I can't do anything to help them. I'm even angrier. I'm angry at those damn criminals. They are so cruel and merciless. They killed people and robbed their goods in public in this imperial capital street. All my dear fans, Xiaoming never dreamed that I would come to the imperial capital to participate in an entertainment program. I never thought that I would encounter such a terrible incident and see such a hell on earth. My dear fans, all my friends who are watching the tragic scene through this live broadcast platform, please join me in praying for those innocent victims. Pray that they can survive. At this moment, there were hundreds of thousands of people watching Tian Xiaoming's live broadcast from all over the country. And as time went by, a large number of viewers swarmed in, and the number of fans was increasing at a very fast speed. In just 5 or 6 minutes, the number of fans who entered the live broadcast room had exceeded 300,000 people. No one spoke. No one tipped. Pairs of shocked and sympathetic eyes stared at the tragic scene on the screen. Many timid girls and kind-hearted boys and girls even covered their mouths with tears flowing out of their eyes. Suddenly, Tian Xiaoming's body slightly trembled. A look of disbelief suddenly appeared in her big bright eyes. Although her hand holding the mobile phone was trembling, she still cried out involuntarily. How could it be him? It's dangerous. How did he break in? Hundreds of thousands of people heard Tian Xiaoming's voice, and their minds were filled with strong curiosity. At this moment, among the hundreds of thousands of people who were staring at the tragic scene, some people recognized the figure in the screen. Even if it was a bit blurry, they could still recognize the person's face. Tanxiu. No one knew who typed these 2 words in the comment section. Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of people were attracted by the figure who sprinted to the side of a smashed off-road vehicle. After their identification, they quickly recognized that the person was Tanxiu, the famous small business owner Tanxiu, the good doctor with a heart of gold. Tanxiu. 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 In the comments section, countless viewers began to type these 2 words. As a result, the 2 names in the comments section were crazily scrolling. Tian Xiaoming stared at Tanxiu's figure, feeling that her breathing had become rapid. Her eyes were full of worry and eagerness. Tears flowed out of her eyes and slid down her delicate and lovely face. He's saving people. Tian Xiaoming's tone was a bit sobbing. Watching Tanxiu save the wounded who was wailing in pain and curling up his body, and sprint to the side of the off-road vehicle to avoid the bullets, she had mixed feelings in her heart. Suddenly, she seemed to have realized something. Although she did not appear on the screen, her voice reached the ears of hundreds of thousands of viewers. Dear friends, you're not mistaken. He is indeed Tanxiu, my most respected big brother, and also the most famous little miracle doctor of our country, Tanxiu. It's him who is rushing into the hail of bullets. It's him who is saving the lives of the wounded. I beg God to bless him to be safe, bless him to save those poor wounded people. Bless him. Bless him. In the comments section, the 2 words that replaced Tanxiu's name deeply remembered the worry for Tanxiu and the blessing for him. In their hearts, the name Tanxiu had been deeply engraved in their minds, and they had already deeply remembered his face. What was courage? What was a hero? Although they knew it in the past, it was very difficult to see the existence of a hero in front of them. But now they saw it. They saw the figure who disregarded his life, braved the threat of the hail of bullets, and braved the situation where he could be shot at any time, and still rushed in to save people. Time passed. More and more people entered Tian Xiaoming's live broadcast room. In just 10 minutes, there were already more than 1.5 million people. However, everyone who came in, after recovering from the shock, saw that face clearly, and saw the figure who was constantly saving people. The 8th one. He had already treated 8 injured people, and brought them to a temporary safe place. My idol, the person I respect the most, I hope you can be safe. Tears flowed down Tian Xiaoming's face, and her voice reached the ears of more than 1.5 million people. Chapter 10:10. The incident in the imperial capital had attracted the attention of the people all over the country. Because of Tian Xiaoming's live broadcast, all the big shots were aware that it was impossible to suppress this news no matter how hard they tried. Therefore, the major media began to report it after being authorized by some high-level officials. Creating public opinion. It was to guide the wind to a healthy direction. Despite the violent incident, the media deliberately led the people of the country to direct their anger to the murderers. However, Tan Xiao didn't want to pay attention to this matter. The only thing he was worried about now was that he must not become famous again after Tian Xiaoming's live broadcast. Otherwise, it would bring him a lot of trouble. At the Tang family's ancestral residence, Tang Guosheng sat quietly in the courtyard, watching the content on the projector. A faint satisfied smile appeared on his ruddy face. Next to him his wife Qin Changyue looked very nervous and worried. Next to them were Tang Guosheng and Tang Guoshou, the two elders of the Tang family. Behind them were Tang Yunpeng, Tang Yunda, Tang Min, Tang Dong, Tang Yan and Tang Yanqing. Even the younger generation, Tang Ning, Tang Ying, Tang Wei, Tang Tang, Tang Ji and the others, were staring at the projector with a nervous and admiring expression. Their eyes were focused on the figure. It was none other than Tan Xiao. Finally, when the live broadcast stopped, Tang Guosheng burst into laughter and said with satisfaction, "He's worthy to be my good grandson." He bravely stepped forward at the critical moment and relied on his own strength to treat the wounded. "I dare say that my grandson's name will be known by all the people in the country before tomorrow. Our Tang family finally has a young hero." "Your praise is a bit too much, Dad." Tang Yunda laughed. "That stinky brat is a hero." Tang Guosheng shook his head and said, "Yunda, Xiao is a hero. He's our family's hero and also the hero in the eyes of the people in the country. Even old geezers like us don't dare to rush into a hail of bullets to save others' lives at this time. This child is our Tang family's lucky star and our hope." "Don't say it, second uncle," said Tang Yunda helplessly. "On the contrary, I feel that what he did was inappropriate. We all know Xiao's strength. At such a critical juncture, he didn't deal with those murderers, but instead went to save people. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't do that." Tang Guosheng squinted his eyes. His eyes flickered with wisdom as he shook his head and said, "Yunda, Xiao is courageous and resourceful. He definitely has his reasons for not taking the initiative to exterminate those villains. Since he has already come to the imperial capital, I believe he will be back very soon. When he comes, we will know once we ask him." "Haha, Grandpa missed me." As a clear laughter came from outside the courtyard, Tan Xiao walked in with Tang 28's group of 5 children. At this moment, everyone in the courtyard turned to look at him and Tang 28's group of 5. Tang Guosheng stood up from the rattan chair with a satisfied look on his aged face. He laughed heartily and said, "Xiao, you've done another great thing. There aren't many people this grandpa admires in my life, but you're definitely one of them." "You're overpraising me, Grandpa," said Tang Xiao with a smile. "I learned a few days ago that your 80th birthday is coming, so I specially came back to congratulate you, wishing you good health and a long life. I don't even dare to think about living a long life, but I'll be satisfied if I can live to 100 years old." Tang Guosheng waved his hand and smilingly said, "Anyways, our whole family is here today, Xiao. Tell us, why did you choose to treat those seriously injured people instead of dealing with those murderers? Also, how did those murderers get dealt with inexplicably and inexplicably? Did you order someone to do it?" Tan Xiao pointed to Tang 28's group of 5 children and smilingly said, "He's Tang 28, Grandpa, and the other 4 are his companions. They are the ones who dealt with those murderers. I may have some strength, but I don't want others to see me take action, so saving people is the best choice." Tang Guosheng immediately understood, but he looked at Tang 28's group of 5 children with a surprised expression and asked, "Xiao, They're all orphans I adopted and cultivated into outstanding cultivators," said Tan Xiao. "They're the best among tens of thousands of children, so they're qualified to be with me." Tang Guosheng was shocked inwardly. He knew that his grandson, Tan Xiao, had secretly adopted street children, but he didn't expect that he would impart cultivation arts to these children and turn them into cultivators. However, What shocked him the most was that these murderers were not weak. At the very least, their speed and strength, as well as the spear techniques they mastered, were absolutely top-notch. These children had only cultivated for a year at most, so how could they have such powerful strength? Tan Xiao didn't explain the cultivation level of Tang 28's group of 5. After greeting the other elders in the courtyard, he smilingly said, "I'm afraid the Fan family is going to run out of luck this time. The leader of the murderers is the second son of the Fan family's patriarch. I'm afraid the patriarch won't be able to handle such a big commotion this time." Tang Guosheng understood politics and was naturally aware of his grandson's meaning. He nodded and sighed. That's right. The Fan family is in trouble this time. No one can save them at this time. That little girl who did the live broadcast has ruthlessly sprinkled salt on the Fan family's wounds. That little girl Xiaoming probably doesn't know how much influence her live broadcast has caused. Tan Xiao chuckled. The Fan family is really unlucky to have given birth to such a prodigal child who invites disaster. You know that little girl? Asked Tang Guosheng, surprised. I know her, Grandpa. We have a deep relationship. Tan Xiao chuckled. I wouldn't have become famous if it wasn't for her. She was the one who publicized me in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital last time through a live broadcast. Afterward, she was the one who reported about me in an orphanage in Star City and made me face the people directly. But I didn't expect that it would be such a coincidence that she actually came to the imperial capital and happened to be at the place where the accident happened. Tang Guosheng nodded and smilingly said, Xiao, I'm afraid this matter will be very big, so I need you to do something for me. What is it? Asked Tan Xiao, confused. Tang Min walked out of the crowd and forced a smile. Xiao, Auntie needs your help this time. The Chu family and the Fan family are somewhat pretentious and have some cooperation in some business fields. Once the Fan family collapses, the Chu family will definitely be implicated. Although I'm a daughter of the Tang family, I'm married to the Chu family and am their daughter-in-law. Therefore, I need you to come forward and help the Chu family in this matter. What can I do? Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment and forced a smile. A shrewd glint flashed in Tang Min's eyes as she said, once the Fan family collapses, their business will definitely be seized. At that time, if you can come forward and meet some people, the seized business will fall into the hands of the Chu family. Of course, it will fall into the hands of the Chu family on the surface, but half of the benefits will be obtained by the Tang family. It seems that you are more than what I thought. Tan Xiao raised his thumbs up and praised. I originally thought that I only need to draw a clear line with the Fan family, but I didn't expect that there are still huge benefits involved. Just leave this matter to me and Cousin Chu-yi. I think we can solve it. Auntie really didn't dote on you in vain, said Tang Min with a satisfied smile. Tang Xiao grinned and said, why can't I get some benefits? I heard that the Fan family has a bad reputation in the imperial capital. Since they deserve this calamity, then let them decline. At this moment, all the members of the Tang family in the courtyard were clearly aware of one thing. Although the Tang family's current patriarch was Tang Guosheng, and his words carried enormous weight in the Tang family, the one who was second only to him was not the other elders, but Tan Xiao. His actions, his abilities, would directly affect the future fate of all the Tang clan members. The next day, Tan Xiao received accurate news that the patriarch of the Fan family had been arrested by the state for condoning his son to create such a huge bloody incident. All the members of the Fan family were also investigated by the state, and all the businesses of the Fan family were ordered to stop business for rectification. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. When the wall collapses, everyone pushes it. In just one day, the Fan family had been reduced from a second-rate family in the imperial capital to an existence that everyone would turn pale at the mention of and avoid. Almost all the families and people who had a friendship with the Fan family began to disassociate themselves from the Fan family. As for the families who had some grudges with the Fan family, they added fuel to the fire in an attempt to completely consign the Fan family to eternal damnation. However, this news was meaningless to Tan Xiao. He didn't care about the life and death of the Fan family, nor did he care about what kind of miserable ending the Fan family would have. What he needed to figure out now was why the Fan family's villains had corpse chi. Corpse chi could affect people's minds and could turn a good person into a devil who would kill without blinking an eye. The second brother of the Fan family was born in a big family, so he naturally knew what would happen to him if he created such a huge bloody incident in the imperial capital. Yet he still did it, indicating that his consciousness had been affected by the corpse chi. At the Northview restaurant, Tan Xiao met the Special Abilities Bureau's big boss, Duan Mulin. Upon seeing his frown, Tan Xiao secretly sighed inwardly. He walked to the opposite side and sat down, asking with a smile, "Senior Duanmu, what's making you so vexed? Is it because of yesterday's incident?" Duan Mulin looked up and saw Tan Xiao. He immediately forced a smile and said, "What else could it be other than that? My hair is about to turn white from worry." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "It can't be, can it? You're the Special Abilities Bureau's big boss, so you don't need to worry about this kind of thing, do you? Someone will naturally clean up the trouble caused by the Fan family." With a solemn expression, Duan Mulin shook his head and sighed. It would be easy to solve if it was just a case involving ordinary people. But things have changed. Chapter 10-11. Tan Xiao's expression shifted and he asked, "What happened?" "You're a member of our department, so it's not a big deal to tell you." Duan Mulin forced a smile and said, "But this matter must be kept a secret." Two core members of the Fan family showed inhuman power and killed more than a dozen intelligence operatives who were monitoring them before escaping. We've investigated the scene of the massacre and found that the killing method was very strange. Tan Xiao's expression slightly changed and he said, "You should have photos of the murder scene here, right? Let me have a look." Duan Mulin pushed the folder on the table in front of him to Tan Xiao and let Tan Xiao grab it. Then he said, "Shouldn't you give me an explanation about what happened yesterday?" While opening the folder and looking at the photos, Tan Xiao said, "I just arrived at the imperial capital yesterday and happened to encounter that incident, so I acted. However, I wasn't the one who crippled those murderers, but several of my men. You also know that it would be very troublesome if my identity was exposed in that situation." Duan Mulin finally let out a smile and nodded. "I knew it was your men who did it, else it would be impossible for them to cripple those murderers so silently. Those murderers of the Fan family have been secretly detained in the prison of our Special Abilities Bureau's HQ. Unfortunately, there's no way to interrogate them for any useful information." "Are they crazy?" asked Tan Xiao. "How do you know?" Duan Mulin stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. "Did your men make them crazy?" Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "It's not my men. They had already lost their minds before they committed the murder. Although I happened to encounter them yesterday, I sense corpse energy from them. It shows that they were affected by corpse energy and committed such a bloody act. I'm even more certain about their situation after seeing these photos." The photos were several tens of meters long. It was a photo of the murder scene where two members of the Fan family killed the intelligence operatives last night. The deceased in the photo had wounds left by sharp claws and teeth. If they were not bitten by wild beasts, then it could only be done by humans under the influence of corpse energy. These people were also known as half-corpses. Duan Mulin's eyes flickered. He looked deeply at Tan Xiao and asked, "Do you have any way of finding the two members of the Fan family who escaped?" Tan Xiao said, "I need the blood of the Fan family, and preferably fresh blood that has just been taken from their clan." "Come with me to the Special Abilities Bureau's prison," asked Duan Mulin. Tan Xiao nodded with a smile and said, "Let's eat first and then we'll go there. I'm a member of the Special Abilities Bureau, but I haven't been to the headquarters in the imperial capital yet. It's really inexcusable. By the way, I need to borrow something from you." Duan Mulin asked, "What do you want to borrow?" "Subaquatic corvette," said Tan Xiao. "Why do you want to borrow the subaquatic corvette?" asked Duan Mulin with furrowed brows. "I had a conflict with some foreign forces and was plotted against by them," said Tan Xiao helplessly. "That's why my people and those foreign cultivation forces fought in the Pacific Ocean. The subaquatic corvette can help me dispatch people and also be used to shoot the enemy." Duan Mulin furrowed his brows and asked, "You mean those foreign cultivation forces? Who are they?" "There are many of them," Tanxiu forced a smile and said, "They are the top 3 forces in the world. I'm afraid we'll have a fight with them, as well as some other forces. In short, the enemy this time is very strong. Also, the main enemy is the Celestial Wizard clan. Senior Duanmu, you should have heard of the Celestial Wizard clan, right?" Duanmu Lin's body shook and he solemnly nodded. "Not only have I heard of them, but I've also fought with them. Unfortunately, the final result of that dispute was that our Special Abilities Bureau lost some people, and it could be said that we suffered a setback. Tanxiu, the Celestial Wizard clan possesses magical witchcraft arts. Their means are mysterious and extremely powerful. Are you their match? I'm sure I can wipe out the entire Celestial Wizard clan if it's only them," said Tanxiu. "But there are more cultivation forces involved now, especially the top 3 forces in the world. It's really hard to say who will win or lose. This is also the reason why I want to borrow the subaquatic corvette from you." Duanmu Lin pondered for a moment and asked, "Can you guarantee the safety of the subaquatic corvette? You must know that the subaquatic corvette is a technology of an advanced civilization. Once it falls into the hands of other countries, it will pose a huge threat to our country in the future." "I can guarantee that." Tanxiu nodded. "If so, then I'll ask my superiors for a transfer." Duanmu Lin nodded. "But I can't guarantee that they will agree to it." "Then tell your superiors that I'll make a deal with the military if they agree to lend me the subaquatic corvette," said Tanxiu. "It's a brand new technological product that will play a huge role once it's applied to the military." Duanmu Lin's spirit shook and he hurriedly asked, "Can you tell me the specifics about the product?" "I can only say that it's a flight product." Tanxiu mysteriously smiled. "A flight product?" A solemn look appeared on Duanmu Lin's face. He got up and said, "I'll tell the bureau to prepare a meal, so let's not waste time here. Whether it's tracking the traces of the Fan family, or borrowing the subaquatic corvette, we must hurry up." Upon hearing this, Tanxiu could only follow Duanmu Lin and leave. However, just as they left the restaurant's entrance, Aquababe hurriedly came down from an RV not far away and ran to Duanmu Lin and Tanxiu. She nodded to Tanxiu and hurriedly said, "There's a situation, Chief." "What is it?" asked Duanmu Lin. Aquababe glanced at Tanxiu and wanted to say something but hesitated. "Tanxiu is a member of our Special Abilities Bureau, so there's no need to hide it from him," said Duanmu Lin. "Tell me, what's the situation?" "I just received news that 2 escaped members of the Fan family have appeared in Liangong City," said Aquababe immediately after hearing it. "The driver of the taxi they took has been killed and his body was found on the desolate seaside. The taxi was also there. However, through our investigation, we discovered that there is another group of people chasing after them." Duanmu Lin's expression changed and he hurriedly said, "How is that possible? The state has given us the task of hunting them, so it's impossible for other forces to get involved. Could it be that the other group of people are enemies of the Fan family?" According to the surveillance footage, there are 3 people in total. One is an old man, and the other 2 are a middle-aged man and a woman. Aquababe shook her head and said, "I've asked the Bureau's intelligence personnel to check the database, but they couldn't find any information about them. Hence, the intelligence personnel inferred that they are not Chinese." "Can you find their traces?" asked Duanmu Lin. "For the time being, the 2 Fan family members are nowhere to be found, but the 3 mysterious people are still within our monitoring range," said Aquababe. "We may be able to see them if we rush to Liangong City as soon as possible. What do you think?" Duanmu Lin looked at Tanxiu and asked. "Let's send someone to bring a member of the Fan family to Liangong City," said Tanxiu. "We'll rush there now. It's naturally good if we can find those people directly. But if we can't, we still need the blood of the Fan family." "Let's do that." Duanmu Lin nodded. "Aquababe, go find a member of the Fan family and bring him to Liangong City." Liangong City, the southernmost city of the 3 northern provinces, had developed very fast due to its coastal location, and had become the most prosperous metropolis in the 3 northern provinces. North Village Fishery. Surrounded by mountains, the scenery was picturesque. The lakeshore was connected to each other, sparkling under the sunlight. Fluent English was heard from a fishing boat. "Master, According to the tracking disc, the direction the two half-ghouls fled should be Lushunku. Shall we go after them now? A middle-aged man with disheveled blonde hair and black sunglasses looked at the old man sitting in front of him and asked. The old man slowly shook his head and said, "They hid the corpse bottles here, which means they'll sneak back. If they want to become powerful half-ghouls, they need the corpse energy in the corpse bottles. They'll definitely come back here within 3 days." The blonde middle-aged man frowned and said, "But what if they have more corpse bottles? As for the corpse bottle they hid here, could it be that they purposely left it to confuse us?" A cold light flashed in the old man's eyes as he nodded and said, "What you said makes sense. However, we don't know much about China's cities, and we're much worse compared to those two half-ghouls. If we follow the tracking disc's guidance, they'll easily get rid of us and follow behind them. Don't worry. Since their aura has been locked by the disc, we'll be able to determine their position as long as they're no more than 300 kilometers away from us within 3 days. But we'll lose their tracks if they flee more than 300 kilometers away," said the blonde middle-aged man. "It won't be easy to find them at that time." The old man sneered. "Since we've determined their direction of escape, we'll immediately track them in the direction of Lushunku once the tracking disc stops. With our speed, it'll be easy for us to stay within 300 kilometers from them." Whoosh! A figure flickered lightning fast and instantly rushed into the fishing boat from the shore. It was a middle-aged woman in black leather with a murderous look on her face. She said in a deep voice, "Some people are monitoring us. They should be the Wuxia officials." The old man's expression shifted and he immediately sneered. "We found those two half-ghouls. If the Wuxia officials want to compete with us for the spoils of war, we don't need to be polite with them. Those two half-ghouls can be sold for a very high price on the black market. We bounty hunters can't give up such a good opportunity." Chapter 10-12. Bounty hunters were a legendary class of people who possessed mysterious and unfathomable abilities. They hovered on the edge of life and death while hunting their prey. Any evil species in the world was their target, including bloodkin, beastmen, zombies, and fierce beasts. Killing was their basic means of livelihood. This was their basic way of making a living. Only by killing their prey could they sell them on the black market and get what they wanted. The only rule of these bounty hunters was that they must never kill ordinary people. "What should we do now, master?" asked a slender middle-aged woman wearing black sunglasses in a low voice. "I once fought with those Chinese ability users. They are a bunch of weaklings." The old man coldly snorted. "We won't bother with them if they don't provoke us and let us catch our prey and leave. But if they get in our way, we'll kill them without mercy." "This is China, master," said the middle-aged woman in a low voice. "I'm afraid we'll attract a lot of trouble if we rashly kill their people. No matter how powerful a lion is, it can't withstand the bite of a pack of wolves." The old man pondered for a moment and nodded. "What you said makes sense. But I haven't fully recovered from my injuries. Continuing to chase those two half-ghouls will affect my healing. All right, go find those people who are monitoring us nearby. I want to see their leader." The middle-aged woman complied, and was about to leave the fishing boat's cabin. Suddenly, the old man's expression shifted and he floated out and appeared on the fishing boat's deck. "They're here." A solemn look appeared in the old man's eyes. He believed himself to be very powerful, but that was only against some weaklings in China's Special Abilities Bureau. He couldn't guarantee victory against the powerful Duan Mulin, the Bureau's director. Not to mention that he had yet to fully recover from his injuries. Half a minute later, Duan Mulin came to the shore with more than a dozen experts from the Special Abilities Bureau. Tan Xiao stood beside him and observed the old man with his hands behind his back. He had learned from Duan Mulin on the way here that these three people were bounty hunters. "We meet again, old Zhong," Duan Mulin said with a faint smile on his face. "I didn't expect that you're still alive after more than a decade, Duan Mulin." The old man frowned. "You're surrounded by people from your Special Abilities Bureau, aren't you? All of them look like ugly melons and cracked dates. They don't have much ability." Duan Mulin said with a smile. "You're still alive, so how can I bear to die? As for whether the people of my Special Abilities Bureau are ugly or not, You don't need to comment on that, do you? The 2 children you saved back then have already grown up. It seems that they have received your teachings, right? Why don't you let these repulsive people of mine test their standards? Duan Mulin, this may be your Wuxia's territory, but you know very well that we bounty hunters will always appear wherever there's a mutant that needs to be killed. There's no such prohibition in the international treaty against us, said the old man indifferently. Besides, we don't want to be enemies with your Special Abilities Bureau. We're just hunting down our sinful prey. You're right. Duan Mulin nodded and said, It's not that I don't welcome you to our country. However, your prey this time is related to a major event in our Wuxia country. So, I hope you can stop and let us clean up the mess ourselves. The old man said coldly, Do you think it's possible? We killed more than a dozen half-ghouls abroad to figure out the prey's information, and I was injured because of it. Our hard work for several months will be in vain if we just give up like this. Duan Mulin fell into silence. He was well aware of the character of bounty hunters. The old man in front of him was even more paranoid. He would never give up the prey that was about to fall into his hands, even if the situation he was about to face was extremely dangerous. Tan Xiao paced half a step forward and looked at the old man, saying, I want to know the price of those 2 half-ghouls. We can cooperate if the price is cheap. The old man raised his brows and suddenly sneered. I didn't expect that your Special Abilities Bureau's people would be so unruly, Duan Mulin. Since when someone can make decisions for you, huh? Or are you going to retire and give up your position as the Special Abilities Bureau's director to this brat? Duan Mulin turned to look at Tan Xiao, shook his head and smilingly said, Old Zhong, if this brat is willing to take over the position of the Special Abilities Bureau's director, I'll immediately give it to him. I'm even willing to be a lowly soldier under him. What? The old man's expression changed and he looked at Duan Mulin and Tan Xiao in disbelief. He knew Duan Mulin's character. This guy was loyal to the country, and even dedicated everything he had to Wuxia. He also cared about the position of the Special Abilities Bureau's director very much, so how come he was willing to give it up now? A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiao's mouth as he lightly smiled and said, I have no interest in the position of the Special Abilities Bureau's director. Senior Zhong, please don't sow dissension between us. Just tell me the price of those 2 half-ghouls in the black market. The old man shot a deep look at Tan Xiao. Then he stretched out a finger and said, $10 million. Tan Xiao made an okay gesture and lightly smiled. You must be planning to sell those 2 half-ghouls on the black market, so you might as well sell them to us. Of course, we can also help you find the whereabouts of those 2 half-ghouls. We can even join forces to kill them. The old man narrowed his eyes. He was very interested and even satisfied with the other party's proposal. More importantly, he wasn't afraid that the Special Abilities Bureau would renege on the deal. However, he was very interested in Tan Xiao's identity at the moment. What's your name, brat? Tan Xiao, replied Tan Xiao with a smile. You're very good. The old man nodded and said, This old man likes young talents like you very much. I agree to this deal, but you need me to recuperate first. Tan Xiao flipped his hand and took out a jade bottle. Then he looked at the old man and said, Senior Zhong, you bounty hunters are in the business of licking blood from the edge, aren't you? Won't it have a great impact on you if you're seriously injured? I have some medicinal pills here. I wonder if you need them? We can discuss the price if you need them. The old man said with a strange expression, Medicinal pills? A medicinal pill that can heal injuries? You're not an ability user? You're a cultivator from China, right? And a cultivator who can refine medicinal pills? Tan Xiao didn't conceal it and smilingly said, That's right. I'm a cultivator who can refine medicinal pills. Are you willing to do this business? I need to inspect the goods first, said the old man. If the medicinal pills you refine really have a strong healing effect, I'll buy them. But if they don't have any effect, you don't need to mention it again. Tan Xiao opened the jade bottle and took out a holy healing pill from it. It instantly shot to the old man and floated in front of him. He then said with a smile, A holy healing pill is worth $20 million. If you want to test it, you'll have to pay me $20 million if the effect is good. I won't take a penny if the effect is bad. The old man angrily shouted. Isn't your asking price a bit too much? $20 million? Why don't you just rob a bank? The smile on Tan Xiu's face receded and his expression turned a bit cold. Then he indifferently said, serious injuries will affect one's combat power in the battlefield, thus leading to one's death. But if you take the holy healing pill I refined, you'll be able to recover quickly, which is equal to having half a life. I want to ask you, which is more important, half a life or $20 million? The old man was speechless. No amount of money would be of any use if he really died in battle. However, the price of $20 million for a single pill was ridiculously expensive. Although he was rich and could afford to buy dozens of holy healing pills, he still felt distressed to be cheated like this. The choice is yours, not mine, said Tan Xiu. It's up to you to decide whether this deal will go through or not. The old man sensed the injuries in his body and looked at the pill floating in front of him. After weighing the pros and cons, he finally compromised and caught the pill. He tore off the wax paper and directly swallowed it. Be careful, master. It's poisonous. The blond man's expression changed and hurriedly called out. The old man shook his head and said, I'd have some concerns if it were someone else. But he's Duan Mulin's man, so I can rest assured. A faint smile appeared on the corner of Duan Mulin's mouth as he cupped his fists and said, Old Zhong, it's really rare for a sharp mouth like yours to be able to say such warm words. I know Tan Xiu's character. He won't harm you. Tan Xiu didn't speak, but Duan Mulin was right. He wouldn't harm the old man in front of him because he didn't want to act against the people of this profession, ever since he learned about the existence of bounty hunters. Although bounty hunters relied on killing to earn money and make a living, they mostly killed mutants. If they encountered a mutant that wasn't committing evil, they wouldn't kill it easily. In other words, most of the bounty hunters were good people. After the old man took the holy healing pill, he felt the pill turn into a surging hot stream that quickly flowed down his throat into his chest, and then into his abdomen. Eventually, a huge medicinal efficacy spread out and rushed to his limbs, bones, and internal organs. Ha! The old man's expression shifted and he immediately sat cross-legged. Duan Mulin turned to glance at Tan Xiu and smilingly said, I didn't know that you could also refine pills before. Tan Xiu, I think the price of a holy healing pill for $20 million is really a good deal. May I know how many you have? I'm willing to pay for it. Tan Xiu thought for a while and replied with a voice transmission. I can sell 100 of them to the Special Abilities Bureau every year for $10 million. This is the limit of the holy healing pills I can offer. Duan Mulin gave a thumbs up and praised. You're truly worthy to be one of us. You're giving me a good discount. As you said, the Special Abilities Bureau will buy 100 holy healing pills from you every year. Chapter 10:13. Time fleeted by and 10 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. The moment the old man sitting cross-legged on the deck of the fishing boat opened his eyes, a glint flashed in his eyes. Immediately after, an excited look burst out from his eyes. His figure floated up as he stared at Tan Xiu and said, 10. I need 10 holy healing pills with this effect. A smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he nodded and said, No problem. There are still 9 holy healing pills left in the jade bottle in my hand, and you need to transfer $200 million to my account. All right. The old man nodded without hesitation. After getting Tang Xiu's account number, he immediately transferred the money to it. The blond man and looked incredulous as they watched their master take the jade bottle with a satisfied look on their faces. The blond man immediately asked, How are your injuries now, master? They're almost healed, said the old man with satisfaction. I just need to adjust my breathing and I'll be able to return to my peak state. The effect of this holy healing pill is much better than I imagined. That little brother surnamed Tang is right. Even if you have this kind of holy healing medicine, when fighting with the enemy, it is equivalent to having half a life. The blond man and looked at each other, and their eyes suddenly turned fiery. They moved their eyes away from the jade bottle in their master's hand, and quickly whispered a few words, then looked at Tan Xiu and smilingly asked, Can you sell us some holy healing pills, Mr. Tang? My senior brother and I are willing to pay 100 million US dollars to buy 5 of them from you. Tan Xiu let out a strange smile and said, All right then. You're lucky. I still have 10 holy healing pills left in my hand. To prevent you from deceiving your master and killing others to rob their treasures, I can sell you 5 of them. After saying that, he took out another jade bottle and took out 5 holy healing pills from it. After handing them over, he said, 100 million US dollars. Pay the bill now. Please wait a moment. The 2 men looked happy and quickly transferred the money to Tan Xiu's account. The transaction was completed. Tan Xiu looked at the old man and said, Senior Zhong, since your injuries have healed, can you join hands with us to hunt down those 2 half-ghouls? I believe that with your skills as a bounty hunter, you should be able to track them down easily, right? That's right. The old man nodded and said, Those 2 half-ghouls have fled toward Lushanku, about 200 kilometers away from us. However, we need a means of transportation. Otherwise, if they keep running, we won't be able to catch up to them in a short time. No problem. I'll arrange it right away. Duan Mulin nodded. More than 10 minutes later, 2 military helicopters arrived quickly. As everyone rose into the air, they entered the cabin before the helicopters even landed. Duan Mulin gave a few orders, and the 2 military helicopters chased in the direction of Lushanku. On the way, Duan Mulin received another message. There was a murder case at Lushanku. There was no longer a drop of blood in the bodies of the 4 victims. They should have been sucked dry. Damn it. Killing intent surged in Duan Mulin's eyes as he hung up the phone. He had encountered half-ghouls before. These half-ghouls had spiritual wisdom, and were almost like cultivators, possessing formidable power. It would be a piece of cake for them if they wanted to commit murder. Half an hour later, the old man sitting next to Duan Mulin suddenly said, They're in the vicinity. The tracking disc should be pointing to the southeast of the mountain forest, and it's definitely no more than 5 kilometers away from us. Tan Xiu glanced at the tracking disc in the old man's hand and said, Can you tell me the principle of this tracking disc? How can it lock onto the target? Can it even track them from a long distance? This is what we bounty hunters rely on to make a living, said the old man with a smile. Every bounty hunter is inseparable from it. In fact, it's very simple to use. As long as you encounter a target and collect a drop of blood from them, you can track them as long as they don't escape more than 300 kilometers away. Have you fought those 2 half-ghouls before? Asked Tan Xiu in surprise. The old man's expression turned a bit solemn as he nodded and said, They were threatening a taxi driver to flee when we found them. They killed the taxi driver when we intercepted them, and we also had a short fight with them. I wouldn't have let them escape if I hadn't been injured. But fortunately, I also injured one of the half-ghouls and dropped his blood on the tracking disc. Tan Xiu rubbed his hands and said with a burning gaze, Can you sell this to me? Or do you have an extra one? I'm willing to buy it. The old man shook his head and said, I only have this one, and it took us a lot of effort to buy it from the black market. My previous tracking disc was destroyed in a fight. You can buy it from the black market if you want to buy it. As far as I know, you can buy tracking discs there, and some of them are even better than mine. Black market? Tan Xiu thought for a moment and asked, Where's the black market you mentioned? At the side. You don't know where the cultivation world's black market is, Tan Xiu? Asked Duan Mulin in surprise. No, I don't. Tan Xiu shook his head. I thought you knew about it, so I never told you about it. Duan Mulin was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. The cultivation world's black market is actually in Philadelphia, country. There was originally no city there, but cultivators needed to exchange some cultivation resources, so it gradually developed there and formed a trading market for cultivators all over the world. Its development has been getting faster and faster over the past few decades, and it's almost comparable to a medium-sized city now. Are there so many cultivators in the world? Asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. To think that they can even form a medium-sized city? Duan Mulin smiled and said, There are indeed a lot of cultivators and even a lot of foreign races there. However, Most of them are ordinary people who moved there because of the gradual development there. Regardless of whether they are martial cultivators or alien races, they all blend into the crowd of ordinary people. Only when they need to do so will they reveal their identities and conduct transactions with others. Tanxiu suddenly understood and nodded. It seems I need to find some time to go to Philadelphia, country. Let's go down now. Those two half-ghouls are nearby, so let's go and deal with them. In the depths of the lush and leafy mountain forest, two members of the Fan family were fleeing in panic. Their faces were a bit dark, the result of being shrouded by corpse energy. Where are we going next, fourth brother? Those three bounty hunters are like dogskin plasters that we can't get rid of. We'll be in big trouble if we don't find a way to kill them. Thick killing intent flashed in Fan Jinzhong's eyes, and there were bloodstains on the corner of his mouth that hadn't been wiped clean. Those three bounty hunters do have some skills, but I'm not worried about them. Fan Jingxing coldly snorted. What I'm worried about are the Chinese ability users. That damn thing couldn't control his corpse energy, causing his mind to be affected by it. He wantonly slaughtered and brought a disaster to our Fan family. Just think about it. How could those people from the Special Abilities Bureau not appear when such a big thing happened in the imperial capital? Second brother Fan, you fucking bastard. Fan Jinzhong angrily roared. It's not easy for our Fan family to obtain a cultivation art. Although it's a corpse cultivator unearthed from an ancient tomb, it can still give us formidable power. According to our original plan, our Fan family would have a huge armed force in just a few decades. After decades of operation, it wouldn't be a problem for us to conspire against China. But in the end, it was all ruined in the hands of that damn bastard. Fan Jingxing suppressed his anger and coldly said, We may have escaped for the time being, but the rest of our family members are still in the imperial capital. If my guess is correct, they're all under control now. However, there's no way for us to save them given our current situation. We can only escape from China first, and then find a way to come back later. Fan Jinzhong nodded and said, Fourth brother, our Fan family has arranged an escape route more than a decade ago. We can quickly escape once the fact that we're cultivating a corpse cultivation art is exposed. We'll be able to reach the hiding place of the ship dozens of kilometers away. The people there are already ready. It seems that First Uncle's arrangement was wise, said Fan Jingxing. Those damn bounty hunters and the Chinese government. Just wait. It won't take long for us brothers to come back. We'll make them pay the price when the time comes. Suddenly Fan Jingxing's expression changed. His slightly gray pupils suddenly shrunk, and his body instantly bounced up from the ground. He grabbed Fan Jinzhong's arm and quickly fled to the distance. They've caught up so fast? Fan Jinzhong broke free from Fan Jingxing's arm and ran away with a look of disbelief on his face. Those damn bounty hunters must have a way to track us, said Fan Jingxing in a deep voice. We must hurry up and escape else. His words came to an abrupt halt as he looked at the dozen figures blocking the way in front of him. The brothers were the top members of the Fan family, so they naturally knew about China's Special Abilities Bureau. They also knew that Duan Mulin was the head of the bureau. It was just that they didn't expect that Duan Mulin would lead his men to block their way ahead of time, while the bounty hunters chasing them were only a few hundred meters away. Did they cooperate? Fan Jinzhong was a bit desperate. Although he was very strong, the people from the Special Abilities Bureau were not to be trifled with. There was also the bounty hunters. The two of them were not someone they could resist. What should I do? Am I really going to die here? Fan Jinzhong clenched his fists tightly. As he grabbed a rusty bronze sword, he immediately ran towards the left. Chapter 10:14. Seeing that the Fan brothers were trying to escape, everyone present sneered. Now that an inescapable net had been laid here, it would be difficult for the brothers to escape even if they were twice as strong. Trap Dragon. Electric Grid. The moment the two ability users of the Special Abilities Bureau chased after the Fan brothers like ghosts, they unleashed their special abilities. The loose soil flew up and turned into two mud dragons that instantly coiled around the legs of the Fan brothers. Electric currents appeared out of thin air and turned into a big net that enveloped the two men. Fan Jinzhong's eyes widened in anger. As he waved his arm fiercely, the rusty bronze sword in his hand shot out a ball of gray sword light. Almost in the blink of an eye, the earth dragon and the electric net were cut in half. Taking advantage of this gap, the two brothers fled again. Duan Mulin's expression slightly changed and he coldly said, "I didn't expect them to have magic tools. But so what? They must die today." "That's not a magic tool in his hand, but a ghost tool." Tan Xiu shook his head. "This Fan clansman does have some ability. He can even get his hands on a rarer ghost tool." "What's a ghost tool?" Duan Mulin was confused. "It's a weapon refined by zombies and half-zombies. After being nourished and tempered by their death qi, it eventually becomes a ghost tool," explained Tan Xiu. "However, the Fan clansman's cultivation should be insufficient to refine a ghost tool. I'm afraid he got that bronze sword in his hand from somewhere else." Upon hearing this, the old man who floated over said, "Tang Xiu's right. Ghost artifacts may be rare, but there are still some places that have them. For example, I once found a ghost tool in the black market. It's just that this thing is very strange. Generally speaking, people who aren't ghost cultivators naturally won't buy a ghost tool. There are a lot of good things in the black market." Tan Xiu was surprised. "There are even ghost tools here?" The old man smiled and said, "There are only unimaginable things in the black market, and almost nothing that can't be found. Everything is negotiable as long as you have the money. However, if you were to sell the healing medicine you refined on the black market, it would definitely be snatched up crazily. Even if the price was a little higher, there would still be people willing to buy it." Tan Xiu thought about it and nodded. "What you said makes sense. It looks like I'll have to make a trip to the black market soon." The old man's expression changed and he smilingly asked, "Tan Xiu, we can go together if you're going to the black market in the near future. I had originally planned to go to the black market after dealing with the two half-ghouls. Although I don't need to sell these two half-ghouls on the black market, I still have some half-ghouls that I need to sell." Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before shaking his head and said, "Senior Zhong, let's exchange contact numbers. I really don't know the specific time. In the following days, I still had some matters to settle. Give me your contact number. I'll call you when I'm there. If you're still there, let's get together again." "Okay." The old man nodded, and his figure instantly chased after the two Fan brothers. His speed was extremely fast and several silver nails instantly shot out from the gap between his fingers. In just a few seconds, the silver nails pierced the backs of the two brothers. Demon binding shackles. The blond man's figure was as fast as an arrow. In the blink of an eye, he had already dashed to the back of the two Fan brothers who had fallen on the ground. A pitch-black chain was swung and entangled the two brothers. At the same time, 4 wind belts entangled and bound the limbs of the two brothers. "Fuck off!" The two Fan brothers roared. Seeing that the black chain and the 4 wind belts binding them were about to break, the old man took out a steel ring and directly wrapped it around Fan Jinzhong's neck. "Go to hell." A surging aura burst out from Fan Jinxing's body as he broke free from the iron chain and wind belt shackles. He instantly dashed to the front of the old man and untied the rope from his waist. "You're courting death," the old man roared. After narrowly avoiding the golden hook, an orange-yellow longsword was unsheathed from the scabbard on his back. Just as he was about to launch a counterattack, the bound Fan Jinzhong suddenly flicked his finger, and a black steel needle shot towards the old man. "Trying to plot against me again?" The old man's entire body radiated qi and strength as his longsword instantly swept away the steel needle. However, at this moment, the rope in Fan Jinxing's hand swung, and the golden hook tore open a bloody wound on the old man's left arm at lightning speed. Not far away, Tang Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He could faintly sense that something was amiss with Fan Jinzhong and Fan Jinxing. Although the two of them were frantically counterattacking, their eyes were filled with a gray aura and a terrifying aura was stirred up by them. It was as though something bad was about to happen. "I'll kill them." Tan Xiu pushed off the ground and his body sprinted towards the two Fan brothers like a cannonball. As he unsheathed his divine sword, layers of sword shadows instantly swept across. Puff puff puff. Fan Jinzhong and Fan Jinxing were scared out of their wits, and their faces were full of fear. Although the two brothers desperately resisted, they were still shrouded by layers of sword shadows, and bloody wounds appeared on their bodies. Die. Tan Xiu flicked his wrist, and the layers of sword shadows instantly merged into one. With a violent aura, the two brothers were cut in half at the waist. Duan Mulin's body trembled. He didn't expect Tan Xiu to be so powerful that he could kill the Fan brothers in one move. This kind of strength and the aura exuded from Tan Xiu made him realize that there was a huge gap between him and the current Tan Xiu. At this time, not only Duan Mulin, but the dozen ability users of the Special Abilities Bureau and the 3 bounty hunters were also dumbfounded. Especially the old man Old Zhong. His eyes flashed with disbelief as he looked at Tan Xiu as if he was looking at a monster. One move. Tan Xiu only used one move to kill 2 very powerful half-ghouls, which was simply unimaginable. It must be noted that he was already very powerful, but he had to go all out to kill these 2 half-ghouls. He's a cultivator. What level has he reached now? Has he broken through to the Golden Core realm? The old man respected martial strength, and the strong naturally deserved respect, regardless of the other party's gender or age. Although Tan Xiu looked to be in his early 20s, the strength Tan Xiu showed had won his respect. After retrieving the silver nails that were inserted into the Fan brothers' bodies, he looked at Tan Xiu and cupped his fists saying, "You're very strong, Mr. Tang." Tan Xiu smiled indifferently and said, "They're just too weak. If they were stronger, I'm afraid it wouldn't have been so easy to kill them." The old man shook his head and said, "Even if they were stronger, I'm afraid they could only be on par with me. But facing you, I'm afraid I can only withstand a few moves. Can you tell me if you've broken through to the Golden Core realm?" Golden Core realm? Inwardly, Tang Xiu found it funny. His current strength was comparable to an early-stage nascent soul powerhouse, and it was very likely that he wouldn't be outdone. Coupled with his endless means, even a late-stage nascent soul expert would be slain by his sword. However, it was necessary to hide his strength. He didn't want to expose his strength too much, so he nodded and smilingly said, "You can say that I'm at the Golden Core realm." The old man raised his thumb and praised, "If Mr. Tang becomes a bounty hunter, I'm afraid it will bring a huge impact to our profession. We might even lose our jobs." "Don't worry, senior." Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. "I'm not interested in being a bounty hunter, and I'm too lazy to hunt down those evil creatures who harm ordinary people. As a matter of fact, my real identity is a businessman, and my main business is to make money." The old man was surprised and asked, "A businessman? What kind of business do you have, Mr. Tang?" Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. His fingers moved and a box of God's nectar suddenly appeared in Tan Xiu's hand. After Tan Xiu sent it to the old man, he lightly smiled and said, "It's our first time meeting. Moreover, we've fought the enemy together, so we can be considered as friends. Just take this box of wine as a greeting gift from me to you." God's nectar. The old man's eyes lit up and his throat immediately squirmed. "It's the wine produced by my company." Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "I hope Senior Zhong will like it." The old man suddenly looked up and incredulously asked, "Is your company the Magnificent Tang Corporation?" "That's right. I'm the owner of the Magnificent Tang Corporation." Tan Xiu nodded. The old man deeply observed Tan Xiu. Although he hadn't known Tan Xiu for a long time, the more he came into contact with Tan Xiu, the more shocked he became. From his initial identity as a cultivator to the medicinal pills concocted by Tang Xiu and his cooperation with him. Then he killed 2 half-ghouls with a single move, and now, he learned that he was the big boss of the Magnificent Tang Corporation. The old man suddenly realized that he had seen countless people in his life, yet he had unexpectedly misjudged Tan Xiu. It was the first time he met Tan Xiu. Yet he was shocked by Tan Xiu. In the Yangtze River, the new waves drive the old waves, and each generation is stronger than the previous one. The old man deeply sighed inwardly and spoke seriously for the first time. "Mr. Tang, this old man is Zhong Zicheng. I used to be a Chinese, but later I was lucky enough to become a disciple of a bounty hunter. It's really a blessing of 3 lifetimes for me to be able to meet such a talented young man like Mr. Tang. I hope we can cooperate more in the future." You're overpraising me, Senior Zhong. Tan Xiu cupped his fists and smilingly said, I also believe that we will have many opportunities to cooperate with you in the future. However, since these two half-ghouls have been dealt with, I'll transfer $10 million to your account. Duan Mulin stopped Tan Xiu and said, Tan Xiu, killing these two half-ghouls is the responsibility of the Special Abilities Bureau and the entire country. You don't have to pay for it. Old Zhong, your original account hasn't changed, has it? Do you want me to transfer the money to your original account? The old man, Zhong Ziqing, nodded and said, No, it's still the same account. Tan Xiu didn't fight with Duan Mulin. His money didn't fall from the sky, and he was naturally happy to see Duan Mulin rush to pay the bill. Chapter 10-15. At a seemingly ordinary courtyard house in the imperial capital, soldiers in camouflage uniforms stood sentry with steel guns in their hands. Many men and women with stern expressions came in and out with documents in their hands. In the innermost room, there were 2 rows of LCD screens flashing with various patterns. Many people were typing furiously on their keyboards, occasionally conversing with each other. Wei Changsheng sat on the sofa in the corner, calmly reading the documents in his hand. As one of the heads of the intelligence department, the recent thorny cases had given him a headache. Although most of the Fan family's members were under control, the interrogation work was very difficult. Team leader. A burly man strode toward Wei Changsheng. A bit of helplessness hung on his grim face at the moment, and his voice sounded a bit strange. Wei Changsheng looked up and asked with a frown, What's the matter? That little girl has been crying all day. She doesn't eat, drink, and doesn't want to sleep, said the burly man helplessly. What should we do? Send her to the detention center? Or? Wei Changsheng fiercely smashed the documents in his hand on the table and angrily said, If it weren't for that damned girl, the major case in the imperial capital wouldn't have been exposed. Investigate it for me. I don't believe there's such a coincidence in the world. When the Fan family members were killing people in the downtown area, she happened to be in an excellent position. I've investigated everything. She's just a girl from an ordinary family, and her occupation is a live streamer on a live broadcast platform, said the burly man. She also has a lot of fans. Team leader, I believe you're well aware of our interrogation methods. Given her character, it's impossible for her to hide a secret. I'm afraid she just happened to be there, so she directly broadcasted it on a whim. Even if it's just a whim, you must detain her for me, said Wei Changxing angrily. How much of an impact and trouble will it cause to us if she broadcasted this earth-shattering case on the internet? I'll send some people to check those live broadcast platforms later. If there are any violations, block them for me. This. The burly man hesitated for a moment before he finally nodded with a wry smile. Here, the team leader's orders were above the heavens. Since he had made up his mind, it was useless even if he tried to persuade him. If she had to blame someone, she could only blame that girl for being nosy. Of all the things she could have done, she had to broadcast such a serious case on the internet. In a situation like this, the country couldn't even block it in time. Instead, she went against the thunder and caused such a big mess. Suddenly, the walkie-talkie in the burly man's hands rang. The voice of the soldier in charge of blocking the road came from inside. Captain, a comrade wants to see Leader Wei. The burly man was taken aback. He glanced at Wei Changxing and asked, Which comrade? He claims to be Tan Xiu, and he has an ID from our security department. Tan Xiu. The burly man frowned slightly. He vaguely felt that this name was somewhat familiar. Wei Changxing, who was sitting on the sofa, suddenly looked surprised. He directly got up and said, It turns out that our great hero has arrived. Although he belongs to our department, it's his first time coming here to report. Let him in. Yes. 5 to 6 minutes later, after Tan Xiu stepped into the courtyard house's backyard, he saw Wei Changxing greeting him with a smiling face and warmly extending his hand. You must be Leader Wei, right? Tan Xiu smiled. I'm Tan Xiu, reporting for duty. Wei Changxing laughed aloud and said, I've heard of your name for a long time, Tan Xiu. I know all the members of our security department except for you. Please forgive me, Leader Wei. Tanxiu dryly smiled and said, I have too many things to do, so I haven't been able to report. Wei Changsheng laughed heartily and said, You're a pillar of the country, so it's natural for you to be busy. Let's not talk about the past. It's good that you can come this time. It's good that you can come. Fortunately, you were present at the time of the major case that happened in the imperial capital. I've already learned from the higher-ups that it was your people who dealt with those murderers, right? Well done. You're worthy to be a member of our security department. You're overpraising me, Leader Wei. It's my duty, Tanxiu said with a smile. Wei Changsheng nodded with satisfaction and said, You're neither arrogant nor haughty, neither humble nor pushy. Well done. Tanxiu, if I remember correctly, today is Senior Tang's 80th birthday, right? I can't personally attend the celebration for Senior Tang, due to too many things recently, so I can only send someone to express my gratitude. But why did you come here today? Is there something else? Well, Leader Wei, I actually have two main purposes for coming here this time. Tanxiu said with a smile. The first is to see you and report to you about the work. Secondly, it's that rash girl. I hope you can make things convenient for me and not stoop to her level. I'll teach her a good lesson later, and not let her cause such trouble again. Wei Changsheng stared blankly for a moment, and instantly understood the purpose of Tanxiu's visit today. With a strange expression, he asked, Do you know that girl called Tian Xiaoming? Tanxiu forced a smile and said, My luck is bad, but I do know that girl. She was the one who reported a few of the things I had done before. Else, I wouldn't have been exposed to the public. You don't want to be famous? Wei Changsheng was surprised. Being famous is like a pig being fat. Tanxiu helplessly said, I think it's better to keep a low profile. Who would have thought that without my knowledge, that lass would secretly report me to someone else? However, she doesn't have any bad intentions. She has always been promoting positive energy, so I can't blame her even if I don't want to. Wei Changsheng nodded. After thinking for a moment, he said, I originally planned to teach that girl a lesson. I'll lock her up for at least 15 days, and let her receive a good education. But since you've come to plead for her, then forget it. Take her away later, and teach her a lesson while you're at it. Let her know what can be reported, and what can't be reported. Don't worry. I'll definitely educate her well, Leader Wei, promised Tanxiu. That's right, Leader Wei, do you like to drink? I have some good wine here. Do you want to sell 2 bottles to me? Wei Changsheng stared blankly for a moment before he immediately smiled and asked, God's nectar? Tanxiu took out the God's nectar from his interspatial ring and handed it to Wei Changsheng with a smile. 2 yuan. I hope Leader Wei doesn't mind me taking money. 2 yuan? Interesting. The corner of Wei Changsheng's mouth curled into a smile. He took out some money from his pocket and found that the smallest denomination was 5 yuan. So he stuffed it to Tanxiu and said with a smile, If you brought a lot of God's nectar, you won't mind selling me 3 more bottles, right? There are a lot of people in our department who like to drink. Tanxiu grinned and took out 3 more bottles of the Immortal abode from his interspatial ring. Then he said, If Leader Wei and your colleagues like God's nectar, you can go directly to Kongxia. I'll tell her in advance. Wei Changsheng squinted his eyes. He had a faint guess that Tanxiu could make God's nectar appear out of thin air. In order to confirm it, he asked in a low voice, Tanxiu, Duanmu Lin told me that you're a cultivator. So, the thing you use to store the God's nectar, is it a storage magic treasure unique to cultivators? Yes, it's an interspatial ring, answered Tanxiu without any hesitation. The space inside is not bad and can store some God's nectar. It's a pity that our country has a rule that we can't give gifts to our superiors. Otherwise, I would have taken out 8 to 10 boxes of God's nectar to show my respect to you, Leader Wei. Wei Changsheng burst into laughter and said, 8 to 10 boxes is not necessary, just 2 bottles are enough. You're very good, Tanxiu. Although it's our first meeting, I like young people like you very much. Work hard in the future, and I believe you'll have great achievements in the future. Thanks for your auspicious words. I'll definitely work hard in the future, said Tanxiu with a smile. Wei Chongqing nodded with a smile and asked, "Are you going to take that girl away now? Or, I'll take her away now," Tan Xiu said. "I still have to go back home to celebrate Grandpa's birthday. I'll invite Leader Wei for a drink when I'm free and report to you." "All right," Wei Chongqing said with a smile. "Senior Tang's birthday can't miss you, my precious grandson. Come here more often if you have nothing to do in the future." "All right," Tan Xiu replied. Under the lead of the burly man, he came to the side room in the front yard. When the door was pushed open from the outside, a sobbing sound came from inside. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. After he entered, he saw Tian Xiaoming huddled in the corner of the single bed, crying. "Did you learn your lesson, lass?" Tian Xiaoming raised her tear-stained face. When she saw Tang Xiu, she looked stunned and then burst into tears, as though she wanted to vent all the grievances she had been feeling. At the same time, she struggled to stand up from the corner, and jumped off the bed into Tan Xiu's embrace. The burly man stood at the door and looked at Tan Xiu and Tian Xiaoming with a strange expression. At this moment, he directly misunderstood that Tian Xiaoming was Tan Xiu's girlfriend, and that the two had a very close relationship. Tan Xiu could feel Tian Xiaoming's emotions. He patted her back and said with a smile, "All right, you're a big girl now. Don't cry so easily. I say you really don't know the seriousness of the matter. You even dared to broadcast that kind of scene. You're lucky that we didn't lock you up for a few years this time." Tian Xiaoming trembled and forcibly stopped crying. Her face was pale due to fear as she asked with a trembling voice, Am I going to jail?" Tan Xiu secretly found it funny. He reached out to scratch her nose and said, "I should have sent you to jail for a few years to reform yourself. But since I'm here, I can naturally spare you from the calamity of jail. However, you can't be willful anymore in the future. You can't randomly broadcast anymore. Else, I won't be able to save you even if I throw away my face." Tian Xiaoming understood Tan Xiu's meaning. She nodded gratefully, but the tears in her eyes still couldn't stop flowing. At this moment, in Tian Xiaoming's heart, Tan Xiu was not only her idol, but also her guardian angel who gave her a sense of security. Chapter 10:16. On the wide highway. The vehicles were like flowing water, and the people were like dragons, fully displaying the bustling and elegant demeanor of the imperial capital. Amidst the traffic, Tan Xiu was driving a BMW with a smile on his handsome face. On the front seat, Tian Xiaoming had yet to completely calm down from the lingering fear. "Should I send you to the airport? Or send you to the hotel?" After a long while, as Tian Xiaoming's complexion turned a bit rosy, Tan Xiu asked with a beaming smile, "Where are you going?" asked Tian Xiaoming hurriedly. "I'm going home," Tan Xiu said. "Isn't your home in Star City?" asked Tian Xiaoming with a confused expression. "Yeah, my home is indeed in Star City, but I also have a home in the imperial capital," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Tian Xiaoming, there's no rule stating that you can't have a home in the imperial capital if you have a home in Star City, right?" Tian Xiaoming suddenly understood. She recalled Tan Xiu's identity and his ability to make money. Not to mention buying a house in the imperial capital, even buying a few big villas wouldn't be a problem. Since she was still worried that the department would find her to settle the account, she said with a bit of nervousness, "I'll go with you. I'll go wherever you go." Cough, cough. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at Tian Xiaoming and said, "Are you afraid that those people will find trouble with you again?" "I'm not afraid as long as I'm with you," replied Tian Xiaoming with a vague answer. Tan Xiu was dumbfounded. How could this girl be so timid? Didn't she seem to be relying on him? After thinking for a while, he said with a serious expression, "Tian Xiaoming, what about those people before? They are people with special identities, good people who are responsible for the stability of the country. Since I've brought you out, they won't look for you again as long as you don't report that kind of news again. Of course, if you're still worried, you can follow me to my home for the next 2 days. I'll take you back when I return to Star City." "I'll go with you to your home," said Tian Xiaoming without hesitation. Tan Xiu felt helpless inwardly, but he still nodded and said, "All right. It just so happens that my grandfather is celebrating his 80th birthday. Come with me and join in the fun. However, you're not allowed to start a live broadcast for the next 2 days, and you're not allowed to reveal my private information." "I promise I won't." Tian Xiaoming immediately made a swearing gesture. The few alleys surrounding the Tang family's ancestral home had been cordoned off by soldiers standing guard. There were also countless plainclothes patrolling the area to prevent people from causing trouble during Old Master Tang's 80th birthday. However, even so, there were still many people from all over the country who came to celebrate the birthday. All of them brought along their identity invitations that they had obtained in advance and prepared all sorts of gifts, causing the surrounding alleys to seem much livelier than before. Tang Guosheng was not worried about those gifts. On the one hand, he had already said that they could not prepare expensive gifts. On the other hand, he was no longer an official, so he did not have to worry about the impact. Moreover, the Tang family was on the verge of becoming the most powerful family in the capital, so no one would attack the Tang family over such a small matter. Even the head of the family would turn a blind eye to it. Creak. After the white BMW stopped at the entrance of the outer alley, Tan Xiao and Tian Xiaoming got out of the car. He then threw the key to a young man who came to greet them. "Tan Xiao, is this your home?" Tian Xiaoming was like a curious baby. After looking around, she lowered her voice and asked. Because she had already seen the soldiers standing guard on both sides of the alley, there were also some men in casual clothes patrolling around like bodyguards. "Yeah," said Tan Xiao with a smile. Tian Xiaoming noticed that many eyes were looking at her. She immediately grabbed Tan Xiao's arm and asked in a low voice, "What exactly does your family do exactly? Why are there soldiers standing guard here? Also, look at those people around. They're just like the ones who caught me before. They're a bit scary." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing. As the saying goes, once bitten by a snake, twice shy. It was very likely that this girl was really traumatized after being caught by the people from the State Security Department. "Don't worry. They're all good people." Tan Xiao let out a faint smile. Suddenly, he recalled something and curiously asked, "That's right. I forgot to ask you. How did you come to the imperial capital?" Tian Xiaoming stared blankly for a moment. Then, she immediately patted her forehead and said, "It's over, it's over. I came to the imperial capital because I was invited by a TV station to participate in a program. The program's recording time will be this afternoon." "What program is it?" asked Tan Xiao. "It's an interview program," said Tian Xiaoming. "The number of my fans has increased greatly recently. Every time I broadcast it, hundreds of thousands of viewers will watch it. Sometimes, the number of online fans can exceed 1 million. So I was invited." "I never thought that you'd become a big star," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "How about this? Let's attend my grandpa's birthday banquet first. If I can spare some time in the afternoon, I'll personally send you to the program. If not, I'll send someone to send you there." Tian Xiaoming hesitated for a moment and said, "Then I'll have to greet the TV station first." "All right." As Tan Xiao and Tian Xiaoming chatted, they quickly entered the alley. At the end of the alley, dozens of guests were being authenticated by security personnel. Tan Xiao hardly knew these people, but some of their faces could be seen in the news programs of some TV stations. "Hey buddy, can I borrow a lighter?" When the two of them walked to the back of those people, a young man turned around to greet them. He looked to be about 23 or 24 years old, and looked very handsome. The person who was with him just now was a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. Tan Xiao took out a lighter and said with a smile, "Are you addicted to smoking again?" The young man grinned and said, "It's not that I'm addicted to smoking. It's just that my grandpa has repeatedly told me to be polite and not to cause any trouble, which made me quite annoyed. In fact, if it weren't for my grandpa forcing me to come here, I really wouldn't want to come to such an occasion. I don't like this kind of occasion either." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "But I can't not come here today." The young man nodded and handed over a cigarette asking, "Where are you from, brother?" "I'm Yueling, from Behu Province's Wu City." My old man is the second eldest in Behu province. Behu province? The second eldest? Tan Xiao suddenly understood. He didn't light up the cigarette and said with a smile, I'm Tan Xiao. I'm from Star City, so I'm also a local. Anyways, we'll go inside first. Let's talk later. Yueling stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, Dude, are you kidding me? My old man and I have been waiting here for several minutes. I think we'll have to wait a few more minutes to go inside. You came later than us, so how can you go inside ahead of us? Come on, let's smoke. We're all of the same age and have nothing to do anyway, so let's chat. Tan Xiao said with a smile. I won't stop for long. Let's talk after we get inside. Having said that, he brought Tian Xiaoming to the front of the people in charge of the security check. After nodding to them, they directly entered. Past? You didn't go through the security check? Yueling, who was at the back of the line, was stunned with an incredulous look on his face. One must know that this was the Tang family, a super rich and powerful family in the imperial capital. Yet this young man could directly enter with his female companion? After Tan Xiao entered, he walked along another alley for tens of meters and saw Tang Wei standing listlessly outside the Tang family's courtyard. Beside him was his first uncle, Tang Yunpeng, and his uncle, Tang Yunqing, who were greeting guests. You're back, Xiao? Tang Yunpeng greeted the guests as he saw Tan Xiao coming over, and asked with a smile. However, there was a bit of curiosity in his eyes as he glanced at Tian Xiaoming several times. First uncle, I've dealt with everything so I rushed back, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Anyways, let me introduce you. This is a friend of mine, Tian Xiaoming. Xiaoming, this is my first uncle and Uncle Yunqing. That brat over there is my big brother, Tang Wei. After Tian Xiaoming saw Tang Yunpeng, a nervous look appeared on her face. She was horrified to find that she had seen Tang Yunpeng on the news more than once. This was a big shot of the country. Tang Wei came over, and was also spirited at this moment. He winked at Tan Xiao and said, Tan Xiao, Wei Nian came here early in the morning, and is now chatting with First Grandma. I'll go in and see her later, Tan Xiao said with a smile. I've been too busy recently and haven't seen her for a long time. First uncle, Uncle Yunqing, I won't accompany you for now. Go ahead, Tang Yunpeng said with a smile. There are quite a lot of guests today. Remember to come and greet them when you see your grandfather and Wei Nian. All right. Tang Xiao complied, and led the nervous Tian Xiaoming into the courtyard house's entrance. Tang Wei, on the other hand, followed them with a curious expression. Is this your sister-in-law, Tan Xiao? How many wives do you have? A smile hung on the corner of Tang Wei's mouth as his shifty eyes kept lingering on Tian Xiaoming. Did you get beaten up recently, brat? Tan Xiao scolded with a smile. I heard you got into trouble again, right? Let me tell you, Tian Xiaoming is my friend, not my girlfriend. Be careful if you talk nonsense again, or I'll teach you a lesson again. Tang Wei shrunk his neck and subconsciously touched his buttocks. He forced a smile and said, It's true that good news doesn't go out, but bad news travels 1,000 miles. Even a busy person like you knows about it. All right. I'm going to find Chu Yi and the others. Tan Xiao quickly stopped him and said, Wait a minute. I have something to do later, so you take care of Xiaoming. Remember, don't bully her. Tang Wei stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and said, Come with me, beauty. I'll introduce some friends to you later. Tian Xiaoming nervously looked at Tan Xiao and said in a low voice, Can I be with you? I'm a bit scared. Don't be afraid. This is my home. No one will dare to bully you, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Besides, Tang Wei is a devil incarnate. With him taking care of you, no one will dare to bully you. I'll come to you after I'm done with my business. Soon. Tian Xiaoming hesitated for a moment before she nodded silently. Chapter 1017. As Tian Xiaoming was taken away by Tang Wei, Tan Xiao came to the backyard alone and met several acquaintances along the way, such as the Bai family's patriarch of Guangyang province, the Huang family's patriarch of Fukang province, and several businessmen he knew in the business world. Of course, the one who made him feel interested was his future father-in-law, Mu Jianhua. After greeting him, Tan Xiu came to the main house and saw his grandfather, Tang Guosheng, chatting with several seniors. He immediately walked over and said, "Grandpa, everything's settled." "Very good. I heard from that brat Duan Mulin that you did a good job this time," said Tang Guosheng with satisfaction. "Come, let me introduce you to some elders. Chu Heng, Chu family's patriarch. Song Gang, Mu family's patriarch. Mu family's patriarch, Mu Hongtao. Bai family's patriarch, Bai Yichen. Li family's patriarch, Li Shirong." After greeting them one by one, Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Grandpas, you guys chat first. I'll have a word with Grandma, and then I'll go outside to welcome the guests." Tang Guosheng waved and said, "Xiu, you don't need to welcome the guests. It's enough to have Yinping and Yinqing outside. There's something we old guys want to talk to you about." Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu pulled a stool and sat down next to Tang Guosheng, curiously asking, "What is it?" Tang Guosheng exchanged glances with the other 5 old men and said, "There's a big project going on in the country recently, the development of Mang City in the west. This is a big project with a total investment of more than 100 billion, maybe even hundreds of billions. Although the national policy is very good, the country doesn't have much money, so it's going to bid for the whole country. We just discussed it and hope to win the development rights of Mang City." Tan Xiu frowned and asked, "Grandpa, I want to know what's the value of developing Mang City?" "There are 3 aspects," said Tang Guosheng. "First, Mang City's geographical location is very special. It's located at the junction of 3 provinces in the west. If we can transform Mang City into a real big city, the state will invest some funds to build a 3-province highway to completely connect the 3 provinces. Second, it will definitely become an important tourist area in the country in the future, because the natural environment is very good, and there are a large number of national protected animals, so it can attract a large number of domestic and foreign tourists. So it's worth developing. Third." At this point, Tang Guosheng paused. Tan Xiu revealed a curious expression. He felt that the first 2 reasons were somewhat far-fetched. After all, this was a huge project that required an investment of hundreds of billions, or even hundreds of billions. If this was all, the reason was far from enough. After some thought he asked, "What's the third?" "Mines," said Tang Guosheng. A huge copper mine had been discovered in the mountains near Mang City. In the near future, the country will start mining the copper mine there. At that time, the number of residents there will increase greatly, and it will be qualified to become a big city. Copper mine? Tan Xiu had a look of surprise on his face. If it really was a large mine, mining would require a large number of workers. Even some of the workers' families would follow them there. In addition, with the development of the city, there would probably be more people going there to settle down. Suddenly, Tan Xiu realized a problem. He raised his head and asked, "Who is the current leader of Mang City?" Tang Guosheng and the other 5 old men looked at each other and nodded with a satisfied smile. "Mu Xinfeng of the Mu family," said Tang Guosheng with a smile. Tan Xiu suddenly understood. He looked at the Mu family's patriarch, Mu Hongtao, and finally understood why Mu Hongtao was qualified to sit here today. It must be noted that the Mu family was not comparable to the Chu family, Song family, Bai family, and Li family. Even the gap between the Mu family and the other families was very big. The investment is a bit big. If the operation is not done well, there will be serious losses. However, I don't think this will happen since it's a cooperation between the 6 families. What I'm most concerned about now are the other 2 problems. If we can solve these 2 problems, we can do it." "Tell me, Tan Xiu, what are the 2 problems?" asked Mu Hongtao. "Who will be the leader of the cooperation between the 6 families?" said Tan Xiu with a straight face. "How much money can the 6 families take out in total?" "Leader?" Tang Guosheng and the other 5 looked at each other. After a long while, Mu Hongtao said, "I have no objection to the Tang family taking the lead." The other 4 patriarchs pondered for a moment, and also nodded. The Tang family was like the sun at high noon now. It wouldn't take long for them to become the most powerful family in Wuxia, so it was acceptable for them to take the lead. Tang Guosheng squinted and a satisfied look flashed in his eyes. He spread his hands and said with a smile, Xiao, it's not a problem for the Tang family to take the lead. That child Tang Dong has been through many years of experience and is already able to take charge. However, you know the Tang family. We don't have much money now. The Mu family can gather 20 billion yuan in a month, said Mu Hongtao. Any more and I'm afraid it will affect the business in other areas. Chu Heng, the Chu family's patriarch, said, the Chu family can also take out 20 billion yuan. If we don't have enough money later, we can take out another 20 billion. As for more money, I'm afraid it will be difficult. Same, said Bai Yichen. More or less, said Song Gang, the Song family's patriarch. Same as everyone else. Li Shirong, the Li family's patriarch, said with a smile. Since each of the 5 families can take out 20 billion yuan, it's 100 billion yuan in total, said Tan Xiao. If the Tang family wants to take the lead, then we can take out 40 billion yuan. All of them add up to 140 billion yuan. It may seem like a lot of money, but it's still far from enough to rebuild a city. However, the profits after the reconstruction will be continuous. It should be enough to deal with the follow-up construction. If the funds are still insufficient in the later stage, each family can add more funds and the profit distribution ratio will be adjusted. Grandpa, I can still take out 40 billion yuan. I'll send someone to transfer the money to you later. Tang Guosheng showed a satisfied smile and nodded. Directly transfer the money to Tang Dong. Later, give him full authority to handle the investment in Mang City. All right. Tan Xiao nodded. The other 5 patriarchs were shocked. They never expected that Tang Xiao would be able to come up with 40 billion yuan. It must be noted that Tan Xiao's magnificent Tang Corporation had been established for less than 2 years. Coupled with the rapid development of the magnificent Tang Corporation, especially the construction of the Magic City Industrial Park, it was simply burning money. 40 billion yuan. Each of their families could also take out so much money, but their funds would be slightly affected after taking it out. If they were to take out more money, they might even suffer a lot of losses. At this moment, they suddenly understood why Tang Guosheng waited for Tan Xiao's arrival to mention the matter of Mang City to a junior. They also understood why Tan Xiao was involved in this matter. This wealth was Tan Xiao's capital. Mu Hongtao grinned and said, It seems that my granddaughter has found a promising man. Tan Xiao, you should visit the Mu family when you have time in the future. You and Wei Ning are not young anymore, so I think your wedding date should be put on the agenda. If you think it's too early, you can get engaged first. What an old fox. The other patriarchs cursed inwardly one after another. They had all heard that Mu Weining was known as the first beauty in the imperial capital. Being able to become a couple with Tan Xiao made them somewhat envious. But now they secretly sighed. Why didn't they have a granddaughter who was the first beauty in the imperial capital? Otherwise, they could marry the Tang family and have a grandson-in-law like Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao didn't want to participate in the content and details of the cooperation. Although Tang Guosheng valued him very much, he didn't think too much about it at the moment. It had been a few days since he left Nine Dragons Island. Although he could receive Mo's report every day, he still wanted to rush back to Nine Dragons Island as soon as possible to solve the problem there. However, once he took out 40 billion yuan, he would probably be penniless. Although he had a good income recently, whether it was the income from Star City's new city brought to him by Kong Xia, or the money he earned from selling medicinal pills, all the money he had in his hands before could barely make up 40 billion yuan. After leaving, Tan Xiao turned around and entered the side room. He saw a group of women surrounding his grandmother, Qin Changyue, talking and laughing. A smile suddenly appeared on his face as he greeted the familiar elders and nodded to the unfamiliar ones. Then his eyes fell on Mu Weining. Tan Xiao. Upon seeing Tan Xiao, Mu Weining suddenly looked a bit pleasantly surprised. What are you talking about with Grandma? Tan Xiao said with a smile. A shy expression flashed in Mu Weining's eyes as she whispered, Nothing. I'm just accompanying Grandma to chat about daily life. Qin Changyue said with a smile. Weining, this child is easily shy. I say Xiao. You and Weining are not young anymore. It's time to consider marriage. I just told your mom that even if you still have to finish your studies, you should at least get engaged first, right? This old woman can't wait to hold a great-grandson. Tan Xiao let out a hollow laugh a few times and said perfunctorily, Grandma, I'll give you a definite letter later about the engagement. Anyways, I still have things to do outside, so I'll take Weining out first. Have a good chat. How could Qin Changyuan not see Tan Xiao's perfunctory words? She shook her head helplessly and said to Su Lingyun at the side with a smile, Lingyun, take some time to have a good chat with Xiao. He's not young anymore. Don't tell me you're not anxious to hold a big grandson? I know, Mum, Su Lingyun said with a smile. After leaving the side room with Mu Weining, Tan Xiao immediately felt relieved and said with a smile, Don't listen to those old people's nonsense. We have too many things to do now, so we'll talk about marriage later. But if they push us too hard, we'll find some time to get engaged and have a formal ceremony first. I'll listen to you. Mu Weining chuckled. Chapter 10:18. Tan Xiao reached out to hug Mu Weining's shoulder. Ignoring the gazes of many people in the surroundings, he said with a smile, Are you free or not? If so, help me take care of someone. I'm a bit worried about leaving it to that Tang Wei. Who is it? Asked Mu Weining, confused. A troublemaker. Tan Xiao helplessly said, She's from Star City. She's from Star City. When I was giving medical services at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, she was the one who broadcasted the live broadcast and made me known to everyone. Later, I asked her to help me report the situation of an orphanage in Star City through a live broadcast, so we became acquainted. As a result, that girl got herself into trouble this time. Have you heard about the major case that happened in the imperial capital in the past 2 days? Mu Weining blinked and immediately said with a smile, I know who it is. Isn't she the anchor Meng Meng? Sure enough, you also watched the live broadcast. Tan Xiao forced a smile. That's right, it's that troublemaker. I didn't expect that she would be so daring to broadcast it live. I only found out about it after those villains were dealt with. It was too late to stop it, so I fished her out after she was taken away by the security department. However, she seemed to be frightened and didn't want to go back to Star City by herself. Moreover, she insisted on following me. She even insisted on following me, so I brought her here. A hero saving the damsel in distress? Asked Mu Weining with a strange expression. Don't tell me she likes you? If I really have such charm, then I'd be a god. Tan Xiao said with a smile. That girl is young and pure. I've only met her a few times, so I don't have any feelings for her. If it wasn't for the orphanage in Star City, I would have driven her back to Star City long ago. Mu Weining chuckled and then said, Where is she? I'll go find her. I'll take you there, said Tan Xiao. She went with Tang Wei. At the courtyard, Tian Xiaoming followed behind Tang Wei with a nervous expression, like a panda being watched by a crowd. Even though the men and women around her were of the same age as her, some were a few years older than her, and some were a few years younger than her. She almost had the urge to turn around and run away when she saw these young masters and ladies with extraordinary temperaments. Moreover, after a short conversation with Tang Wei, she finally figured out one thing. Tan Xiao's grandfather was Tang Guosheng, a great figure of the country, a great figure in the truest sense of the word. Even Tan Xiao's uncles, were either high-ranking officials or powerful people in the army. This made her heart tremble even more. However, Tian Xiaoming realized that ever since she found out about Tan Xiao's true identity, she didn't feel repulsed. Instead, she admired Tan Xiao even more. Because in her imagination, those second generations of officials and rich second generations were all a bunch of hedonistic young masters with no real ability at all. They were all embroidered pillows. But Tan Xiao really wasn't. He was extremely skilled in traditional Chinese medicine, and could even be compared to Bian Ke and Hua Tuo in ancient times. Moreover, he had founded a super powerful company like the magnificent Tang Corporation. Are you really brought back by young Master Tan Xiao? A girl in a long dress with her hair combed into a beautiful bun asked with wide eyes. Despite being very nervous, Tian Xiaoming still nodded and said, "It was Tan Xiao who brought me back." A bit of envy appeared on the girl's face as she said, "I really didn't expect that Tan Xiao would bring you back. However, I heard that Tan Xiao's fiancé is Mu Weining. How come?" Tang Wei glared at the girl and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Mu Weining is indeed Tan Xiao's girlfriend, and Xiaoming is Tan Xiao's friend, a very good friend. You. Don't be so scheming. If you want to get close to my good brother, then go all out. I firmly believe that there's no wall that can't be pried open and no boyfriend that can't be seduced in this world." Tang Ying raised her fist and smilingly scolded, "Are you looking for a beating, kid? Weining is my bestie, yet you dare to instigate everyone to seduce her boyfriend? I'll see Weining later, and tell her your words word for word. Let's see if she'll remember you later." Don't. Tang Wei looked like he was begging for mercy as he cupped his fists and said, "Big sis, my good big sis, please spare me. If Weining really marries Tan Xiao after some time, then she'll become my official sister-in-law. If she remembers me at that time, then I'll have a good time to eat in the future." Upon hearing Tang Wei and Tang Ying's words, Tian Xiaoming curiously asked, "You said that Tan Xiao has a girlfriend? Is his girlfriend outstanding?" In an instant, the dozens of young men and women present all stared at Tian Xiaoming, dumbfounded. The entire scene turned silent as they looked at her, as though they were looking at a monster. Outstanding, huh? They were all juniors of big families and thought that they were outstanding. But when they asked themselves, they knew that Mu Weining was definitely more outstanding than them. Not to mention her talent, just her appearance, figure, and temperament alone made her known as the first beauty in the imperial capital. It was no joke. Tian Xiaoming stared with wide eyes and asked with a puzzled expression, "Did I say something wrong? Tan Xiao is very outstanding in my eyes. He's more outstanding than any other boys. If there's no really outstanding girl, she's not worthy of him." "Xiaoming, do you think you're worthy of Tan Xiao?" Tang Wei asked with a strange smile. Immediately, everyone had a strange smile on their faces. "I'm not worthy of him." Tian Xiaoming shook her head without hesitation. "Tan Xiao is like the sun in the sky, and I'm like the stars in the sky. How can a speck of starlight compete with the blazing sun? How can I be worthy of him?" Huff! The people around heaved a long sigh of relief. They thought that this girl didn't have any self-awareness. Tang Ying liked the innocent Tian Xiaoming very much. She stepped forward and pulled her hand, saying with a smile, "Xiaoming, since you're a friend of my younger brother, Tan Xiao, then you'll be my friend from now on. If anyone dares to bully you, just tell me. Big sis Ying will stand up for you." Tian Xiaoming now knew Tang Ying's identity. She suddenly felt flattered. She didn't expect that Tang Ying didn't have the slightest temper of a young lady, and was so amiable and approachable. She hurriedly nodded and said, "Thank you, Big sis Ying. You and Tan Xiao are both good people." Uft! Tang Ying couldn't help laughing and said with a smile, "Little sis Xiaoming, don't give me the good person card." "That's right. Where did Tan Xiao go? Why didn't I see him coming with you?" "Big sis, Tan Xiao went to see Grandpa," Tang Wei answered. "He seems to have something to say." After a while, holding Mu Weining's hand, Tan Xiao walked into the courtyard. After seeing Tian Xiaoming beside Tang Ying, he faintly smiled and said, "Big sis Ying, you know Xiaoming, right? This girl is timid, so don't make fun of her." Tang Ying smiled and said, "Don't worry. I don't even have the time to protect her, so how can I scare her? But you two are holding hands and showing off your love, huh?" Hee hee. Tan Xiao let out a hollow laugh. Tian Xiaoming's eyes widened as she looked at Tan Xiao holding Mu Weining's hand. Only at this moment did she realize how stupid her previous question was. Not to mention this girl's talent, just her appearance, figure, and temperament were already 1 in a billion. Even she had never seen anyone who could be compared to her in real life. Beautiful. Too beautiful. Even though she was a girl, she still felt attracted to Mu Weining. It was this feeling that caused her little heart to thump a few times. Mu Weining came before Tian Xiaoming and said with a smile, "Hello, I'm Mu Weining, Tan Xiao's girlfriend. You're Xiaoming, right? Tan Xiao just told me about your situation. I'm very happy that you can come to Grandpa Tang's 80th birthday party." Tian Xiaoming gulped and stammered. You. Hello, I'm Tian Xiaoming. I'm very happy to attend Grandpa Tang's 80th birthday party. Moo. Big sis whinnying, you're so beautiful. You're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. A smile appeared in Mu Wenying's eyes. She turned her head and glanced at Tan Xiao. Then she affectionately pulled Tian Xiaoming's hand and said with a chuckle, I like you very much. You're Tan Xiao's friend, so you'll be my friend in the future. I hope you can treat me as a friend in the future. Tian Xiaoming nodded her head like a chick chasing rice and said with an excited face, I will. I'll definitely treat Big Sis Wenying as a good friend. And me too, said Tang Ying with a smile. Standing at the side, Tan Xiao watched the women talking and laughing wittily. He immediately smiled and said, Big Sissing Wenying, do you have anything to do this afternoon? Mu Wenying shook her head. Tang Ying directly said, Nothing. Why? Do you have something to do? Since you have nothing to do, then accompany Xiaoming to the TV station. Tan Xiao said with a smile. She's going to accept an interview program this afternoon. No need, said Tian Xiaoming all of a sudden. It's because I lost contact yesterday. I just called the program team, and they said they've cut me off. Tang Ying frowned and said with dissatisfaction, Don't worry, Xiaoming. Do you think the TV station can cut you off just because they say so? Just wait for me to make a call. I'll make sure they cut all the interviewees and only interview you. Give me their cell phone number, quickly. Tian Xiaoming's lips squirmed and she stuttered. Big Sissing, there's no need, right? In fact, it's fine if I don't participate. Xiaoming, your character makes you easy to be bullied, said Tang Ying. You've already said that you'll be interviewed, and you've come to the imperial capital from Star City. But they actually kicked you off because you lost contact yesterday. That's simply bullying. Give me your phone number. Trust me. Tian Xiaoming looked at Tan Xiao with a bit of an awkward expression. Since Big Sissing wants to stick up for you, just give her their phone number, said Tan Xiao with a smile. It's a program after all. Since you can participate, there's no need for you to go to the imperial capital from Star City. But remember, don't talk irresponsibly, especially about what happened in the past 2 days. Chapter 10-19. Tan Xiao chatted with them for a while before he left because he had something to do. Just as he came to the door, he happened to see Qin Ling coming over. His eyes were looking around as if he was looking for someone. Hey brother, you're here? Qin Ling's eyes lit up upon seeing Tan Xiao, and he strode over to greet him. Are you looking for me? Asked Tan Xiao with a smile. Is there something you need? Qin Ling smiled and said, It's nothing. It's just that I don't know many people here. We met outside before, so it means that we're fated to meet. Also, I want to introduce you to a friend. Don't look like you don't care. Let me tell you something. This friend of mine has an unusual identity. Who is this friend of yours? Asked Tan Xiao with a smile. With a proud expression on his face, Qin Ling grabbed Tan Xiao's wrist and pulled him into the courtyard. His eyes looked around. When he saw Tang Wei's figure, he immediately became a bit excited and said, This friend of mine is a descendant of the Tang family, the famous young Master Tang Wei. I was the one who entertained young Master Tang when he went to Beihu province. I seem to know this friend you just mentioned, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Qin Ling stared blankly and his pace slowed down a lot. He then asked in surprise, You know him too? That's right, I forgot to ask you. What does your family do, brother? Some are officials, and some are businessmen, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Those who can come here should have very powerful family backgrounds. Qin Ling nodded. I just thought that you looked familiar before, brother, but I can't remember where I've seen you before. But it doesn't matter. We're friends in the future. At this moment, Tang Wei had also seen Tan Xiao and Qin Ling. With a curious expression, he greeted them and asked, How come you two are together? Did you know each other before? Young Master Tang, I met brother Tan Xiao outside today, said Qin Ling hurriedly. I think he's a good guy, so I wanted to introduce him to you. I didn't expect that he just said that you knew each other before. Tang Wei couldn't help laughing as he pointed at Tan Xiao and asked, Qinling, do you really not know who he is? Qinling shook his head and said in confusion. I just feel that he looks familiar, but I really don't know who he is. Young Master Tang Yu. Tang Wei interrupted him with a smile. According to age, he's my younger brother. In terms of ability, he is my elder brother. You haven't even heard of Tan Xiao, the young master of the Tang family? Isn't this news a little too ill-informed? Tan Xiao? Tan Xiao of the Tang family? Qinling was stunned. His pupils suddenly contracted, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He finally remembered why he felt that Tan Xiao looked familiar when he first saw Tan Xiao. So he was the famous Tan Xiao of the Tang family. That's right, he was also the famous young divine doctor, Tan Xiao, as well as the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss, Tan Xiao. Holy shit! Qinling groaned inwardly. He finally understood why the guards didn't check Tan Xiao's ID when he came in. It turned out that he was a member of the Tang family. Awkward. Qinling was so embarrassed at the moment that he wished he could find a hole to burrow into to cover his embarrassment. This was really shameful. He had lost a lot of face. Wasn't it stupid to introduce him to his elder brother? Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and looked at Qinling's awkward expression. He patted his shoulder and smilingly said, I didn't make it clear before, so you misunderstood me, Brother Qinling, Brother Wei. This brother is a good person. Take care of him since he has come to our house. I'll go outside first to greet the guests with Uncle and Uncle Yinqing. Alright, go ahead. Tang Wei laughed and grabbed Qinling's shoulder. While walking inside, he smilingly said, You made a mistake, didn't you? But you're really lucky, kid. I don't need to say anything about Tan Xiao's ability, especially when it comes to judging people. His vision is absolutely accurate. Since he said that you're a good person, then I'll make friends with you. Let's go, I'll introduce some friends to you. Qinling was a bit excited after hearing it. He didn't expect that he would make a mistake and actually have a relationship with Tan Xiao, and even get Tang Wei's approval. He was quite clear about the character of the Tang family's young master, Tang Wei, who had eyes on the top of his head and was very difficult to get close to. Now that he was able to get his approval, he was really lucky. A few minutes later, after Tan Xiao appeared outside the courtyard's gate, he saw his uncle, Tang Yunpeng, and uncle, Tang Yunqing, greeting the guests. He nodded to the unfamiliar guests, and then walked to the front of the two. Tang Yunpeng smiled and invited the guests into the house. Then he meaningfully asked Tan Xiao, Did you meet with the old master and the others? Did you talk about something interesting? Tan Xiao understood what Tang Yunpeng was referring to, so he nodded and said, Yeah, our Tang family is in charge, so I'm afraid Uncle Tang Dong will be very busy in the future. As for the money, I took out 40 billion yuan, which should be enough for the early stage. Tang Yunpeng's eyes lit up. He raised his thumb and praised. This nephew of mine is really rich and overbearing. He took out 40 billion yuan just like that. Anyways, who was the one who proposed the leadership? Those elders didn't want to bring it up. They felt that it wouldn't look good on their face, so I directly brought it up. Tan Xiao smiled. In any case, I'm their junior, so it's not a problem for me to say something inconvenient to them. Wisdom is indeed the most powerful power. Tang Yunpeng praised. I really don't know how your brain works, kid. You've made a great contribution to the family, so what reward do you want? Your uncle will do whatever it takes to get it for you. I don't need any reward. Tan Xiao smiled. It's just that I'll be leaving the imperial capital after Grandpa's birthday is over. I'll return to Star City and then go abroad to handle some things. I heard you've been busy abroad recently. What exactly are you doing? Asked Tang Yunpeng curiously. My people have a conflict with some foreign cultivation forces, said Tan Xiao. There will be a very brutal battle soon. If we can achieve a complete victory this time, those foreign cultivation forces will never dare to provoke us again. But if we lose, we'll suffer great losses. Cultivation forces? Tang Yunpeng and Tang Yunqing's complexion changed, and their expressions instantly turned solemn. Is there anything you need us to do, Tan Xiao? Asked Tang Yunpeng in a deep voice. Our Tang family's armed forces are not very strong, but we have a lot of people. Just tell us if you need us. At worst, we'll use our people's lives to pay for it, but we must eliminate all the enemies. The strength of those cultivators can't be won with numbers. Tan Xiao shook his head. You don't need to worry, uncle. I won't send people to fight them if I don't have absolute confidence in winning. As a matter of fact, it's better to say that those experts from those cultivation forces are my sparring partners. Tang Yunpeng and Tang Yunqing exchanged dismayed glances with a strange expression on their faces. After a while, Tang Yunpeng said, Tan Xiao, I'd like to see those people you've trained if you have time. Don't go there for the time being. Tan Xiao nodded and said, wait until the matter over there is resolved, then you can go there. Otherwise, it'll be very difficult for me to guarantee your safety. I understand. Tang Yunpeng nodded. Besides, with my status, I need to apply to the higher-ups if I want to go abroad, so I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for me to go out in a short time. Shortly after, Tan Xiao accompanied Tang Yunpeng and Tang Yunqing to greet the guests. Many guests came to the 80th birthday of the Tang family's old patriarch, Tang Guosheng. As long as they had the qualifications, they would try their best to come. It was nearly noon. Tang Yunpeng and Tang Yunqing returned to the courtyard house, while Tan Xiao put his hands in his pockets and strolled outside. He needed to observe the surrounding situation. If there was no problem, then he would go in to attend the old patriarch's birthday banquet. Ever since he destroyed the Yao family, Tan Xiao clearly realized that no matter how big a family was, there would always be potential enemies. Although the Tang family was now in the limelight, no one knew how many potential threats were hidden in the background. Is there any special situation? Asked Tan Xiao as he looked at Tang Hu, who was in charge of the security work. Tang Hu was an outstanding talent cultivated by Tang Guosheng. Although he didn't have the Tang family's bloodline, he had been following Tang Guosheng since childhood, and was absolutely loyal to the Tang family. There's no special situation. Tang Hu shook his head. All the guests who meet the entry criteria have gone in, and those who don't meet the criteria have all left. Tan Xiao stared blankly and asked with a confused expression, what do you mean they don't meet the criteria? Those who can come to celebrate Grandpa's birthday should have an extraordinary background, right? That's right. Except for an old beggar. An old beggar? Tan Xiao's expression moved and asked, where is he now? Pointing to the alley entrance in the distance, Tang Hu said, he just left 40 minutes ago. He should be gone by now. Tan Xiao nodded and strode out of the alley entrance. Suddenly, his expression moved as he looked at the side of the road tens of meters away. There was an old man in ragged clothes. Beside the old man, there was a little girl of 5 or 6 years old. She sat quietly by his side. After walking over, Tan Xiao observed the old man and the little girl. He immediately frowned and said, Old man, are you here to attend the birthday banquet? The old man raised his head and bitterly nodded. Yeah. It's a pity that I can't get in. Those who can attend the birthday banquet, aside from the Tang family's relatives, there are also a lot of big shots, said Tan Xiao. Are you related to the Tang family? The old man was silent for a moment. He turned to look at the little girl with a bit of reluctance in his eyes. He nodded and said, I'm not related, but I can talk about it. Alas, I wanted to see him for the sake of this child, and also for my last wish, but I didn't expect. Tan Xiao's eyes swept over the several scars on the old man's neck and finally stopped at the left cheek. He found that the old man didn't have a left ear. Further, he also noticed that the old man exuded a deathly aura. It was likely that he was a person who was about to die. Old man, if you can tell me your identity, I might be able to take you inside. The 3rd chapter has been updated. Seeking monthly votes for support. Chapter 10:20. The old man looked surprised. After observing Tan Xiao for a while, he forced a smile and said, 13 years. I've been following the old leader since I was 10 years old. I left at the age of 23 due to special reasons. I'm now 73 years old, and I haven't seen him for 50 years. I don't even know if the old leader still remembers me now. Is the old leader you mentioned the one who will be celebrating the Tang family's birthday today? Asked Tan Xiao. The old man nodded. His hand trembled as he took out a half-pack of crumpled cigarettes from his pocket. He took one out and was about to light it when he suddenly thought of something. He secretly shook his head and stared at the cigarette in a daze. He didn't speak. It was as though he had fallen into the past. "I can roughly guess some things, old man," said Tan Xiao. "But I'm afraid your body isn't very good right now." The old man came back to his senses. He looked up at Tan Xiao and helplessly said, "I'm half a step into the coffin, and I'm only left with my last breath." "That's right, little brother. Can you help me pass a message to the old leader? Even if I can't see him in this life and feel a bit regretful." "But," Tan Xiao interrupted the old man and said, "Come with me, old man. I'll take you inside." The old man stared blankly for a moment. He tremblingly stood up and asked with a face full of hope, Can you really take us inside?" "Yes, I can," said Tan Xiao. A trace of tears overflowed from the old man's eyes as he hurriedly nodded. He then pulled the little girl up and said, "Did you hear that? Grandpa's last hope is still there." Tan Xiao supported the old man and didn't say anything more. Under the watchful eyes of Tang Hu and many guards, he took them into the courtyard house. Soon, they arrived at the innermost courtyard. Many people looked over curiously because of the old man's attire. Tang Guosheng was sitting in the house at the moment, chatting with several old men. Suddenly he saw his son, Tang Yunpeng, coming from the outside and smilingly said, "Yunpeng, how's the situation outside?" "Almost all the guests have arrived, Dad," said Tang Yunpeng. However, Xiao brought in an old man and a young man, and said that the old man wants to see you. Tang Guosheng was confused. "An old man and a young man? Who is that old man? I don't know him either." Tang Yunpeng shook his head and said, "He looks like an ordinary old man judging from his clothes." Tang Guosheng thought for a moment, then got up and said, "Xiao has always done things with deep meaning. Since even you don't know him, let's go and take a look." Half a minute later, when Tang Guosheng stepped out of the room, his gaze fell on the old man a dozen meters away. Suddenly he was stunned. He observed the old man's face and found him vaguely familiar, but he couldn't remember who this old man was. "You are?" Tang Guosheng walked up to the old man and looked at the old man's agitated face. Two streams of tears flowed down his wrinkled face. The old man shook off Tan Xiao's support and let go of the little girl's hand. His body trembled as he took 2 steps forward and knelt before Tang Guosheng in front of everyone. "You can't." Although Tang Guosheng couldn't recognize the person in front of him, he still hurriedly reached out to support him. The old man avoided Tang Guosheng's outstretched hands and knelt on the ground, sobbing, "A brother is like a father. I have no regrets in this life since I can see the old leader again before I die." "Zicheng?" In the depths of Tang Guosheng's heart, the softest part seemed to have been touched. All of a sudden his eyes widened, and a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. The people around could see that Tang Guosheng's body was somewhat trembling. You're Zicheng? Yours was Zicheng?" The old man raised his head and sobbed. You still remember me?" Tang Guosheng suddenly threw himself to the ground and hugged the old man. Tears welled up in his eyes as he called out in a trembling voice, You're really Zicheng? You." The old man wailed and cried, "It's me. It's really me." Tang Guosheng suddenly let go of the old man, and immediately got up and took a step back. His tearful eyes stared at the old man. Suddenly, under the watchful eyes of everyone, he slapped the old man's face loudly, and then pointed at the bridge of his nose and cursed. "You bastard! Where the fuck have you been all these years? Huh? Tell me, where the fuck have you been?" "West ugly," cried the old man. Tang Guosheng's complexion instantly turned as pale as paper. He looked at the old man in disbelief, and could no longer hold back his tears. He threw himself to the old man again and hugged him in his arms again, crying, "You bastard! Who told you to go back? Who told you to guard that place for me? Do you know that? Do you know how hard I've been looking for you all these years? From the south to the north, from the east to the west, I've sent people to almost search the entire country, but I just couldn't find you." The old man's body suddenly trembled a few times, and a trickle of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. However, he acted as if he didn't notice it as he desperately shook his head and said, "Zicheng has become a cripple. Zicheng can no longer protect you. Zicheng still remembers the land that was dyed red by Ugly's blood. And Yundi was there. Yundi? At this moment, Tang Guoshu, Tang Guoxing, Tang Yunpeng, Tang Yunda, Tang Min, and even Tang Dong, Tang Yan, and Tang Yunqing in the courtyard all had strange expressions. Others might not know, but they knew very well who this Yundi that the old man mentioned was. In particular, Tang Guoshu, Tang Guoxing, and Tang Yunpeng clenched their fists at this moment. In fact, Tang Yunpeng was not Tang Guoxing's eldest son, but Tang Yundi was. However, when Tang Yundi was 7 years old, he died in the west because of a battle in Ugly. Tang Guoxing and Zhou Zicheng hugged each other and cried bitterly. Finally, their emotions slowly was perfectly aware that if this old man hadn't seen his grandpa up and saw the bloodstain on the corner of his mouth, to live for more than 10 days. Greatly changed. But his current mood was really unstable, at the and side he simply couldn't hold on. What are you waiting for? Go and call the doctors. Heard the noise outside and came out of the house. Here. When she learned that the old man was Tang Yunpeng, she hugged her head and cried bitterly. Appeared on his old face as he said, heart, "Old leader, was please don't tire this child and don't bother the doctors." He had been with them since he was 10 years old. Is as clear as a mirror in my family member. I'm already very satisfied now to be able to return to the imperial capital, especially knowing that he had been in Ugly for so many years. And he hurriedly said, she felt as if her heart was being cut by a knife. My heart and lungs were injured by that gradually stabilized their emotions under the comfort of even a perfected golden immortal can't save me now. Zicheng had tears in his eyes with a smile, but a smile hung on his face. It's all because of this child that I can persist until now and come to Yu's hands. Nyo, call me Grandpa Tang. He stepped back a few steps and said, Grandpa Tang, please allow me to call you big brother and sister-in-law. Tang Guoxing heavily nodded sister-in-law. Zicheng has no regrets to see you again. Do you still remember Yundi's playmate? I want to stay in Ugly. Don't stop me and don't send me off. She's little Ying's granddaughter. If we meet again, her parents died when she was more than 2 years old. After saying that, I've been raising her until now. He staggered toward the outside step by step. I'm going to die soon. Tang Guoxing chased him a few steps and shouted, this child. Zicheng, can you take her in and raise her back? Nor did he stop. Remembered the delicate and pretty face. It was the face of his son's playmate, food or drink. How many years gushed out of Tang Guoxing and didn't expect that he would see her descendant today. They wanted to stop Zhou Zicheng. However, looking at Zhou Zicheng's somewhat determination, he shook his head and shouted, I can raise this child, but I won't allow you to die. I'll send someone to protect the old man in secret all the way back to Divine Doctor. When the old man returns there, I want him alive. I'll also send someone to help him in secret so that he can live peacefully in his last days. Grandpa's was 5 internal organs have deteriorated and nearly half of his blood has been lost. We're so grateful for your support. The vitality in his body is almost cut off, and this incredible journey through captivating stories. Even if I have a miraculous generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. To be honest, the reason why the old man can hold on that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure. His eyes fell on Zhou Zicheng's face as he hurriedly asked, You used the rejuvenation technique? Do you know that once you use that power, you won't be